Chapter 745 Divine Robe Taoist Trick. Chapter 745 Divine Robe Taoist Trick. In the dark forbidden zone, yellow leaves quickly fluttered. On careful look, every yellow leaf carried countless living beings. They had all sorts of images and postures, and their sizes were different. There were at least 10,000 such yellow leaves. 10,000 yellow leaves later, a mighty figure advanced. These yellow leaves were not even as big as a grain of sand in front of him. It was the Divine Robe Taoist. The Divine Robe Taoist looked ahead and slowly walked forward. On his shoulders stood two figures. One of them was the Curse Fiend Celestial. The other was a woman. Her lower body was like smoke and her upper body was covered in armor. Her head looked very small, but her face was beautiful. Her eyes were dark and sharp. Overall, she looked extraordinary, but she exuded an extremely dangerous aura. The Curse Fiend Celestial couldn't help but ask, "Deity, are you sure this trip is guaranteed? That Hanju can't be underestimated. He's almost invincible among his peers." Please keep reading on MYB0XN0VL. Calm. The woman beside him covered her mouth and laughed. "To think that you're a chaotic fiend celestial. You'll never be able to become a divine spirit. The reason why he's invincible is that he didn't encounter us. The Despair Tao spirit suffered a loss because of arrogance. It's not fellow Taoist divine robes match." The Curse Fiend Celestial frowned. The poisonous bugs on its face stopped and did not move. The Divine Robe Taoist smiled. "It's a curse. Don't worry. I'm confident in my strength. Besides, I've prepared a trump card. I can still kill him even if he's a great Tao Supreme." Could it be that Hanju has already become the great Tao Supreme? Of course not, the Curse Fiend Celestial replied. He knew that Hanju's potential was ridiculous, but it was impossible for him to reach the great Tao Supreme realm so quickly. Very few could successfully reach the Supreme Sage realm, even among the talented great Tao divine spirits. A trace of hope appeared in the Curse Fiend Celestial's heart. It would be best if the Divine Robe Taoist could kill Hanju. The Curse Fiend Celestial was very heroic, and felt that he could definitely kill Hanju when he was born. He could also take advantage of Hanju's reckless cursing to rope in his subordinates. However, Divine Lord Peacock gave him a warning: the current Hanju was no longer someone he could compare to. At that time, perhaps you won't need to do anything. I can flatten the heavenly Tao alone. The woman chuckled and smiled charmingly. However, her figure was too ugly. It was really difficult to compare her to the Curse Fiend Celestial. The Divine Robe Taoist smiled. "If you succeed, your people will live in the heavenly Tao in the future. You will control the heavenly Tao for me, but you still have to follow the rules." The woman smiled. "Don't worry. If the heavenly Tao grows up, it won't be good for me either." The Curse Fiend Celestial was silent, but his heart was filled with jealousy. The expressions of the two people in front of him made him very unhappy. However, he had no choice but to bow his head. He would be on par with the great Tao Divine Spirit one day. Wait, no. I want to trample on the great Tao Divine Spirit and become the strongest existence. Outside the 33rd heaven, in front of the Universal Hall, the sages gathered here, and were still working together to repair the heavenly Tao. Not far away, Great Sage Void Soul suddenly opened his eyes and said, "They're here. 2 great Tao sages, and a huge race." His words shocked the sages. Heavenly Venerate Xian Du immediately ordered, "All of you, send orders to the various Providence sects to strictly guard the chaotic city and the chaotic heavenly road. Leave the repairing of the heavenly Tao to me. All of you guard your own areas." Yes, the sages immediately vanished. Heavenly Venerate Xian Du turned to look at Great Sage Void Soul and asked, "Are you confident?" Great Sage Void Soul snorted. Heavenly Venerate Xian Du heaved a sigh of relief. It was good that the other party was confident. Great Sage Void Soul said, "Of course not. How can I defeat 2 by myself?" Heavenly Venerate Xian Du's face twitched. Even he, who had a stable Tao heart and excellent quality, almost wanted to curse. Why was this fellow so sarcastic? Heavenly Venerate Xian Du couldn't figure out how he had offended Great Sage Void Soul. Soon, the entire immortal world learned that the heavenly Tao was in danger. All the Providence sects began to rush to the various chaotic cities. The disciples in seclusion were forcefully called out. Such a commotion naturally couldn't be hidden. For a time the immortal world surged. Some were terrified, some were nervous, some did not believe it, and some were excited. The excited were all geniuses or mighty figures. Heroes appeared in troubled times. If they wanted to leave their names in history forever, they had to kill their way out. Finally, fight for the heavenly Tao without regrets. So the divine might heavenly sage had already expected this. It's said that when the flame race and the calamity race attacked, the war was extremely cruel. The enemy this time will only be stronger. We cultivators have cultivated for thousands of years. Isn't it for such a battle? To prove the value of a lifetime. Fellow Taoists, let's go to the edge of the immortal world together. Good timing. Aren't cultivators like us who haven't even reached the Emperor realm, go just cannon fodder? Hanju was still in the simulation trial. He wouldn't be insta-killed by the enemies in the simulation trial, as he was covered in treasures. However, it was difficult to insta-kill the enemies. Hanju still couldn't do it even after thousands of battles. He ended the latest simulation trial, and was about to enter another, when he suddenly felt two powerful auras approaching the heavenly Tao. Hanju immediately used the simulation trial. The current system was far better than before, and could already detect experts in the nearby domains outside the heavenly Tao. He automatically filtered out the existences below the sage realm, and quickly found the newcomers. Divine Robe Taoist. Perfected Great Tao Primordial Chaos Realm. Great Tao Divine Spirit. Hatred Concubine. Perfected Great Tao Primordial Chaos Realm. Transcendent Tao Expert, 2 of them. Hanju wasn't in a hurry. After all, Great Sage Void Soul was outside. He would first enter a simulation trial to prevent a failure. He closed his eyes. 10 breaths later he suddenly opened his eyes. Damn it, what the hell? Hanju cursed again, and entered the simulation trial again. 20 breaths later, he opened his eyes and exhaled. Damn it. Fortunately, he had entered the simulation trial in advance. Otherwise he would have failed. In the first battle, he was caught off guard by the Divine Robe Taoist's mysterious supreme treasure, and was severely injured. He couldn't move his entire body, and was so frightened that he immediately ended the simulation trial, because it would be the same as the possibility that the system had deduced. In the second battle, he used the ability of the substitution fiend celestial to dodge the attack of the mysterious supreme treasure. Then he easily suppressed the Divine Robe Taoist. This supreme treasure could only be used once. The Divine Robe Taoist had come prepared. Hanju was secretly vigilant. He had to be like this in the future, and not be reckless. Perhaps their cultivation realms were the same, but Dharma treasures were immeasurable. Hanju guessed that this treasure was borrowed by the Divine Robe Taoist recently. If not for Hanju's prediction in advance, he might not have been killed, but the heavenly Tao would definitely be destroyed. Once he was trapped, the enemy would be able to destroy the heavenly Tao. Hanju slowly stood up, his eyes filled with killing intent. The other party had a killing move, clearly targeting him. Hanju thought of something and asked in his mind, does the Divine Robe Taoist have a backing? 300 billion years of lifespan will be deducted. Do you want to continue? Continue. No, Hanju smiled and prepared to jump out of the Taoist temple. Then, he thought of something and paused. He asked in his mind, who is the strongest helper invited by the Divine Robe Taoist? 300 billion years of lifespan will be deducted. Do you want to continue? 300 billion years? Hanju suddenly wanted to curse. This dog actually had a trump card. Chapter 746 Foolish Sword Sage. Chapter 746 Foolish Sword Sage. 300 billion years of value. Could it be a great Tao Supreme? Hanju felt weak, and hurriedly chose to continue. A figure appeared in his mind, and a message appeared in front of him. Foolish Sword Sage. Perfected Great Tao Primordial Chaos Realm. Chaotic Fiend Celestial. He once fought a life and death battle with Pangu and almost died. After cultivating for countless years, he used the sword Tao created by Laozi to attain the Great Tao Supreme Realm. He was also severely injured from challenging an ancient deity, and his cultivation realm declined. Hanju secretly heaved a sigh of relief. So he was just a former Great Tao Supreme. His strength was still that of a Great Tao Sage. Hanju asked in his mind, Can I insta-kill the foolish sword sage? 300 billion years of lifespan will be deducted. Do you want to continue? Please keep reading on Wuxia world. I can't even insta-kill the divine robe Taoist. How can I insta-kill the foolish sword sage? Wasn't this wasting lifespan? Hanju immediately changed the question. Can I kill the foolish sword sage? 300 billion years of lifespan will be deducted. Do you want to continue? Continue. There's a certain possibility, Hanju frowned. It was definitely possible. That meant that he might be killed. Hanju suddenly wanted to run. Now that the heavenly Tao had been broken, it could no longer be used as a protective umbrella. Wait. If the great Tao above could break the heavenly Tao, could the heavenly Tao survive until today? Or was it that the number of great Tao was extremely small? Hanju was in a dilemma. In a dark domain, two figures stood side by side. In front of them was a hole of light. In the hole was a miniature image of the heavenly Tao. They could see the divine robe Taoist leading the vast army forward, getting closer and closer to the heavenly Tao. The cursed fiend celestial was very nervous. The person beside him was too powerful, and made him uneasy. It was the foolish sword sage. The foolish sword sage wore a black robe. There were bones above his neck and no flesh on his face. However, he had a pair of eyes and black hair that fluttered like flames. Long swords floated behind him in the shape of fans. They circled around like dazzling sword flowers. The foolish sword sage said, "So it's great sage Void Soul. I thought he was already dead. Is this the backing of the heavenly Tao?" Great sage Void Soul? Puzzled, the cursed fiend celestial asked. Did you recognize the wrong person? Hanju only lived for a little more than 400,000 years. He seems to have a special Tao field that can block prying and karma, so you can't see it. A hint of coldness flashed across the eyes of the foolish sword sage. Oh, he became a great Tao sage in 400,000 years. This child should be the reincarnation of a supreme existence. Supreme? The cursed fiend celestial frowned. He still did not understand what kind of existence a great Tao sage was. In his opinion, the great Tao sage realm was already the ceiling of the chaos. Which side could win would depend on the strength and number of great Tao sages. Before coming, he was still worried that the divine robe Taoist would be rash, so he found an excuse to hide first, afraid that Hanju would target him. In the end, the divine robe Taoist asked him to wait for the foolish sword sage. Only then did he know that although the divine robe Taoist looked arrogant, he had actually prepared a backup plan. He had never heard of the foolish sword sage, but he could sense that he was much stronger than the divine robe Taoist. Hanju's background is indeed mysterious. No one can guess it. Only the Tao ancestor has mentioned that he is a variable. The cursed fiend celestial said carefully. Foolish sword sage scoffed. Can the words of the Tao ancestor be trusted? What variable? Back then, he even called himself the savior of the great Tao. The cursed fiend celestial was silent, not knowing how to reply, because he did not understand the Tao ancestor. At the same time, the divine robe Taoist had already arrived near the heavenly Tao. His voice resounded throughout the heavenly Tao. I am a great Tao divine spirit. The heavenly Tao sages are not subject to the rules of the chaos. They even went against their superiors and killed a divine spirit. From today onwards, all the heavenly Tao sages will be executed. The heavenly Tao will be controlled by the hatred race. I hope that all of you can redeem yourselves in the future. With that said, all the living beings in the heavenly Tao exploded. Too arrogant. Directly announcing the outcome to them? Too arrogant. Sages don't follow the rules? Damn it, what hatred race. It's just another flame race. I just want to know who is so powerful to actually kill a divine spirit. Is it the divine spirit of chaos? Who else can it be? It must be the divine might heavenly sage. The reason why this fellow is attacking must be because he sensed the other party's ambitions. I can't take this lying down. Let's go. Go to the chaos and kill the enemy. To hell with the hatred race. I want to kill them until they don't even dare to have any hatred. Great Sage Void Soul arrived outside the heavenly Tao and looked at the divine robe Taoist, flying over from the depths of the dark forbidden zone. He took a deep breath. His hands and his sleeves trembled slightly. He was timid to begin with. This was also why he had hidden behind the 13 lives and secretly used his dark instinct during the Heavenly Court battle. He was afraid of death. That suppressed period was his nightmare until now. However, he had to listen to Hanju. Damn it, why am I so well-behaved? I'm not like the old me at all. Great Sage Void Soul cursed silently. He was cursing himself. Thinking of Hanju, he instinctively respected him and didn't dare to have any rebellious thoughts. The divine robe Taoist waved his hand, and the 10,000 yellow leaves dispersed. They flashed and disappeared, surrounding the entire heavenly Tao in the blink of an eye. The hatred race prepared to attack the immortal world from all directions. On the shoulder of the divine robe Taoist, Hatred Concubine immediately flew towards Great Sage Void Soul and smiled. Are you Hanju? Great Sage Void Soul snorted coldly and did not say anything. The divine robe Taoist said, he's not. Kill him and Hanju will naturally come out. Hatred Concubine covered her mouth and laughed. Suddenly, she transformed into an endless black mist and condensed into a huge face that was several times larger than the entire heavenly Tao. It looked down at Great Sage Void Soul. The heavenly Tao was huge. Every place near the mortal world formed a universe. How vast were tens of thousands of mortal worlds connected together, let alone the immortal world and the 33rd heaven. Even so, they still looked short in front of Hatred Concubine. Great Sage Void Soul sighed. He wanted to use his dark instinct, but this mystical power required him to be stronger than the other party, or have more people on his side, forming a siege. Now, he felt that it was very difficult for him to challenge the divine robe Taoist and Hatred Concubine alone. He knew his strength very well. Although he was at the late-stage Great Tao Primordial Chaos Realm, his strength was inferior to some mid-stage Great Tao Primordial Chaos Realm cultivators. At this moment, a figure appeared beside Great Sage Void Soul. It was Hanju. His expression was cold as he gently pushed Great Sage Void Soul behind him. Great Sage Void Soul looked at him gratefully relieved. Hanju cursed silently. Useless thing, useless. He actually wanted Great Sage Void Soul to use his dark instinct to connect to the divine robe Taoist and Hatred Concubine. However, if that happened, he would not be able to move, and might be secretly attacked by the foolish sword sage. Hatred Concubine looked down at him and smiled teasingly. What a handsome face. I can't even bear to kill you. If you kneel down and beg for mercy, I'll say. Hanju suddenly raised his palm and struck. Primordial Divine Rage. He had long accumulated the power of more than 100 fiend celestial Dharma idols in the Tao field. With a strike, the dark forbidden zone shook. The nearby dark space shattered, and the primordial void appeared. Hatred Concubine couldn't dodge in time, and was directly drowned by Hanju's vast dharmic powers, dissipating into thin air. Chapter 747 Then Fight. Chapter 747 Then Fight. Looking at the vanished Hatred Concubine, Hanju looked at the divine robe Taoist indifferently and asked, Is this what you rely on? Great Sage Void Soul was extremely excited, and almost clapped his hands in joy. He remembered this mystical power. Back then, the 13 lives had died from this move. It was the same for the Despair Tao spirit. Hatred Concubine was not a great Tao divine spirit. How could she withstand it? The divine robe Taoist was also shocked. Hanju's attack was too ruthless. He used a killing move right from the start. Furthermore, the power just now was indeed terrifying. Even he would not be able to withstand it. You're indeed very strong. No wonder you can kill the Despair Tao spirit. However, it's ridiculous that you want to kill the Hatred Concubine with one strike. Please keep reading on Wuxia World. EU. The divine robe Taoist looked at Hanju and smiled mockingly. On the other side, in the mysterious space, the cursed fiend celestial saw Hanju attack and said excitedly, It's him. He's Hanju. Foolish sword sage's pupils constricted as he muttered. That strike just now contained more than one great Tao power. How is that possible? Aren't the various great Tao incompatible? The cursed fiend celestial didn't know much about Hanju either. He only knew that he was born because of Hanju and how long he had been born. He was also surprised by Hanju's growth speed, but he didn't know the truth. Are you confident in killing him? The cursed fiend celestial asked carefully. The foolish sword sage did not answer. His gaze was fixed on the projection of the light hole ahead. Heavenly Tao. All the sages, pseudo-sages, and zenith heaven golden immortals were watching nervously. No matter how low their cultivation realm was, they couldn't spy on this battle unless they were in the chaotic city. Hanju's strength surprised them, but the confidence of the divine-robed Taoist caused them to panic. Li Taiga stood in a chaotic city and held his sword hilt. So powerful. His palm was already so powerful. Could his sword Tao really reach that level? Even from afar, he felt the aura of death the moment Hanju attacked. After attaining the Daono, after becoming a zenith heaven golden immortal, he had not felt this way for a long time. Hanju's strength made Li Taiga suddenly waver in his determination. At this moment, Hatred Concubine appeared beside the divine-robed Taoist. Her figure condensed but quickly dissipated. She gritted her teeth and glared at Hanju, her eyes filled with fear. Hanju said expressionlessly, "She indeed has some methods. She can even survive like this. But she won't live for long." Hanju walked towards the two of them. He was already mentally prepared to fight before coming. He thought of escaping, but where could he go after leaving the heavenly Tao? The enemies he was involved in now could no longer be avoided by hiding. Furthermore, it was not time to escape yet. As long as he survived this, the heavenly Tao would continue to become stronger. Sooner or later, the power of the heavenly Tao would become so powerful that even the Holy Mother of Order could not destroy it. Since that was the case, they would fight. In any case, Hanju had a soul fragment in the Taoist temple. He could be reborn after death. He would just hide in the Tao field in the worst case. Hanju's time Tao robe fluttered violently with the waves stirred up by the remnant dermic powers. The sun and moon yin-yang protection on his back spun at high speed and emitted divine light, like the sun and moon circling behind him. Fiend celestial Dharma idols condensed again and stood above Hanju's head. All of them were majestic and domineering. Even the living beings in the immortal world could see mighty figures when they looked up. They were like the giant gods of Panga who had split the world apart. Their shadows hung in the sky. The divine-robed Taoist smiled arrogantly. This mystical power again. Did you rely on this mystical power to kill the despair Tao spirit? Very good. Today, I will break your mystical power and avenge the despair Tao spirit. He walked towards Hanju. He already understood that Hatred Concubine had lost the ability to fight. He didn't know what power that strike contained that made her unable to condense her body. The two figures flashed. Every step crossed a distance that immortal realm cultivators could only cross in decades. They were rapidly approaching each other. The heavenly Tao sages watched nervously. Hatred Concubine immediately ordered, "Children, attack the heavenly Tao." With that said, figures flew out from the 10,000 yellow leaves surrounding the heavenly Tao. The leaders at the front had powerful auras, including the aura of the primordial chaos zenith heaven golden immortal realm. The battle of the heavenly Tao immediately erupted. All the heavenly Tao cultivators in chaotic city shouted and began to form hand seals. The geniuses rushed out one after another, not afraid of death. In the era of geniuses, if one wanted to become a genius, other than potential, one had to have great courage. At the same time, the divine-robed Taoist and Hanju were already close. More than 100 fiend celestial Dharma idols appeared above Hanju's head and entered his body. He knew why the divine-robed Taoist gave him time. It was because the latter was also waiting for an opportunity. He was waiting for the time to take out that supreme treasure. Hanju had already calculated the distance in the simulation trial. When he reached a certain distance, the divine-robed Taoist would immediately take out a supreme treasure. This treasure was extremely fast. He had to attack the moment he attacked. Suddenly, the divine-robed Taoist suddenly raised his right hand, and a strong light burst out from his sleeve. Hanju's eyes narrowed. A fiend celestial Dharma idol above his head suddenly raised its arm and disappeared with him. Substitution fiend celestial. Hatred Concubine appeared where Hanju was. This was the ability to replace the fiend celestial. It could replace any existence with itself, no matter how far away it was. This mystical power couldn't be used continuously, but it was enough to deal with the Taoist's supreme treasure. Hatred Concubine was drowned by the strong light and could not move instantly. The divine-robed Taoist widened his eyes in shock. Impossible. That was not speed at all. Even he, a perfected great Tao primordial chaos realm cultivator, could not react in time. Thinking of something, he subconsciously turned his head. Han Ju had already appeared behind him and struck his body with an unstoppable palm. This palm has 480,000 years of cultivation. How many palms can you withstand? Han Ju's voice entered the divine-robed Taoist's ears. The divine-robed Taoist was directly struck by the primordial divine rage, and his body exploded. However, his soul was protected by a strange light. His soul was golden. However, Han Ju had already seen it in the simulation trial. He waved his palm again. The primordial divine rage needed to be accumulated, so he had no choice but to use the grand unity aspect to summon fiend celestial dharma idols to besiege him. The divine-robed Taoist immediately jumped into a deeper space. A long staff appeared in his hand. He turned around and swept it. The long staff actually swept out huge suns. There were countless of them, forming an endless sea of fire that wanted to drown Han Ju. Han Ju used the power of the space fiend celestial and the traversal fiend celestial to arrive behind the divine-robed Taoist. Space Great Tao. Impossible. The divine-robed Taoist exclaimed as he sensed the fluctuation behind him. More than 100 chaotic fiend celestials had already appeared behind him and looked down at him. They punched down together. This layer of space instantly shattered, and even the deeper space continued to shatter. Layer after layer of space shattered. When the primordial void appeared, the power of the fiend celestials landed on the soul body of the divine-robed Taoist. Boom! All of this seemed complicated, but time could not describe it. The divine-robed Taoist couldn't dodge in time, and his golden soul was directly destroyed. Han Ju summoned the Devour Fiend Celestial next. It opened its bloody mouth and suddenly devoured all the surrounding space fragments. Before the divine-robed Taoist could condense his soul body and completely recover, he was sucked into the Devour Fiend Celestial's mouth. His voice sounded the moment he disappeared. Foolish Sword Sage. Chapter 748 Sword Domain. Chapter 748 Sword Domain. Foolish Sword Sage. The divine-robed Taoist's voice echoed in the primordial void. He was a great Tao sage. His voice lasted for a long time, and did not need a medium that mortals knew. Han Ju immediately jumped back into the heavenly Tao, afraid that the foolish sword sage would harm it. The dark forbidden zone on the side of the heavenly Tao shattered. Countless spatial lightning interwove. At the edge of the immortal world, the war between the hatred race and the heavenly Tao had already erupted. There was no sign of the foolish sword sage. Han Ju remained vigilant. He raised his hand and waved, sucking a black lamp into his hand. This black lamp was the supreme treasure that the divine-robed Taoist had used previously. It could instantly immobilize the enemy. The hatred concubine was still fixed in the air and couldn't break free. Seeing Han Ju appear, hatred concubine's beautiful eyes widened in despair. Where was the divine-robed Taoist? Did he escape? Please keep reading on Wuxia World. EU, or did he die? Hatred concubine was more inclined towards the former. The two of them had only fought for a few breaths when Han Ju returned. She knew the divine-robed Taoist very well. How could he be killed so easily? The divine-robed Taoist was indeed not dead, but he was not far from death. Han Ju kept fusing the Fiend Celestial Dharma idols to strengthen the power of the Devour Fiend Celestial and corrode the divine-robed Taoist, who was trapped in the devouring space. Great Sage Void Soul was extremely excited and looked at Han Ju with reverence. Too powerful. That was no ordinary great Tao sage. The divine-robed Taoist and the hatred concubine were helpless in front of Han Ju. Seeing Han Ju appear, the sages were also extremely excited. With Han Ju around, the rise of the heavenly Tao was unstoppable. Han Ju kept checking his surroundings to prevent the foolish sword sage from ambushing him. At this moment, a hoarse voice entered his ears. Enter the deep space and fight me. I won't attack the heavenly Tao no matter who wins. Han Ju cursed silently. How can you be in danger if you lose? He asked in his mind. Did the foolish sword sage find help to hide? 300 billion years of lifespan will be deducted. Do you want to continue? Continue. No. Han Ju narrowed his eyes. It seemed that this fellow still had morals. He immediately vanished. His figure shuttled through layers of space and arrived at the deepest space that even a freedom sage could not spy on. If this space shattered, he would face the primordial void. Hanju saw the foolish sword sage. This fellow stood in the purple mist space, looking like an evil god. Foolish sword sage stared at him and asked, "Why can you control so many great Tao powers?" Hanju said, "It's just a resemblance. How can the power of the great Tao be so easy to master?" The foolish sword sage felt that it made sense. Perhaps this was the uniqueness of Hanju's mystical power. It was extremely similar to various great Tao. The swords behind him suddenly flew out for a distance, like sword flowers blooming. It was an extremely spectacular sight. "Come, Junior. You're very strong. Perhaps I won't be your match if you can double the number of Dharma idols." The foolish sword sage raised his right hand. In an instant, sword shadows appeared in the deep space. They were dense and surrounded Hanju from all directions. At a glance, it was difficult to estimate how many billions there were. Fiend celestial Dharma idols condensed above Hanju's head. All of them were arrogant and majestic. 10, 20, 50, 80, 100. The foolish sword sage stared at him calmly, waiting for him to finish condensing all his Dharma idols. "I haven't had a satisfying battle for more than 100 million years. Junior, don't let me down." The foolish sword sage shut up before he could finish speaking. It was because Hanju had summoned more than 150 fiend celestial Dharma idols. And the number was still increasing. His heart trembled. This kid didn't use his full strength when facing the divine robed Taoist just now. The foolish sword sage was silent and still did not attack. Hanju had summoned more than 200 fiend celestial Dharma idols. And the number was still increasing. 230, 250, 280, 300. The foolish sword sage's gaze changed. He couldn't help but ask, "Who are you?" Hanju was still increasing the fiend celestial Dharma idols, as he replied indifferently, "I'm only a nobody among the living beings of the heavenly Tao. I don't want to cause trouble, and don't want to be competitive. However, some people always try to invade my heavenly Tao." "A nobody?" The foolish sword sage fell silent again. Seeing that Hanju's number of fiend celestial Dharma idols had increased to 350, he couldn't take it anymore and asked, "Is there no limit to your mystical power?" Hanju said, "I'm almost there." The foolish sword sage snorted and immediately waved his hand. Countless sword shadows attacked Hanju from all directions. He had to fight since he was already here. He wasn't even afraid of the ancient gods. How could he be afraid of Hanju? He had waited previously, because he was arrogant. Now he attacked because he was not brainless. It would be terrible if Hanju accumulated more fiend celestial Dharma idols. The 300+ fiend celestial Dharma idols quickly dispersed. They roared and attacked, scattering the sword shadows that came from all directions. Space shook violently and shattered. Taking advantage of the appearance of the spatial fragment, Hanju took out the primordial judgment sword and used the 10,000 life sword. Great Tao mystical power. All things turned into swords. All the spatial fragments transformed into sword shadows and attacked the foolish sword sage. Sword Tao mystical power. The foolish sword sage's eyes emitted a cold light. He didn't expect Hanju to also be a sword cultivator. This mystical power was similar to the mystical power he had just used. Their realms were both great Tao mystical powers. The foolish sword sage pulled out 2 swords from his waist. As the blades collided, the billions of sword shadows formed by the 10,000 life sword shattered. He suddenly appeared in front of Hanju and slashed with his sword. So fast. The sword chi landed on Hanju and was blocked by the Time Tao robe. The Time Tao robe was a chaotic defensive supreme treasure that could resist great Tao attacks. And the foolish sword sage himself was at the great Tao level. However, although this robe was strong, it couldn't resist the great Tao level attacks for long. This was also the reason why he would lose in the simulation trial. He had supreme treasures, and so did those great Tao sages. Hanju disappeared and appeared where he was. Fiend celestial Dharma idols entered his body crazily. The foolish sword sage knew that he was fusing powers and immediately raised his 2 swords, forming a cross in front of him. A sword light burst out from his body, illuminating the entire deep space. In an instant, the entire deep space had changed. As far as the eye could see, there were swords everywhere. Far away, the sword shadows overlapped into a spatial wall. The blades reflected countless figures of Hanju. Hanju clearly felt killing intent everywhere. If he was not careful, his body and soul might be instantly destroyed. This fellow was something. However, in front of absolute power, all mystical powers were useless. More than 300 fiend celestial Dharma idols fused into Hanju's body. The sword domain began to shrink, and countless sword tips attacked Hanju. He raised his sword and slashed. The primordial divine rage's power fused into the primordial judgment sword. A sweep of the sword. Boom! The sword domain shattered. About to attack Hanju, the foolish sword sage was hit by terrifying dharmic powers. He subconsciously raised his sword to block, but his body was drowned. Hanju's sword chi directly shattered this deep space and entered the depths of the primordial void. The various layers of space along the way shattered one after another without any resistance. When the foolish sword sage condensed his body again, he discovered that another Dharma idol condensed above Hanju's head at an extremely fast speed. It was this move again. The foolish sword sage was shocked and furious. He was shocked because the primordial divine rage was too terrifying. He couldn't block it at all. He was furious that he might be defeated by the other party's unchanged move. Chapter 749 Unrestricted Deity. Chapter 749 Unrestricted Deity. Hanju didn't know the shock in the foolish sword sage's heart. Even if he knew, he wouldn't care. Since the battle had begun, he would fight to the death. The other party was an intruder. Hanju didn't feel any psychological burden. The fiend celestial Dharma idols kept condensing above his head and entering his body. The foolish sword sage took out his two swords and crossed his legs to attack Hanju, forming two spiraling sword chi. Hanju dodged easily, but the two sword chi circled around and attacked him again. Most importantly, the end of the sword chi did not dissipate, as if two lines had been stretched. After dodging several times, the sword chi formed several circles around Hanju. How fancy! Please keep reading on Wuxia World. Hanju suddenly looked at the foolish sword sage. Space twisted violently. Foolish sword sage's pupils constricted as he cursed. Space Great Tao. Is it really just similar? His body directly vanished into thin air, turning into countless clones that covered the primordial void. Hanju appeared and moved again. This time, he no longer used the power of the space fiend celestial, but the traversal fiend celestial. It was invisible and silent. Hanju used the power of the exposure fiend celestial to quickly see through the foolish sword sage's true body and appeared behind him. The foolish sword sage was still teasing Hanju, wanting to see his reaction. No one had seen through this move of his. Previously, he could rely on this move to last for a period of time, even when facing an ancient god. Suddenly feeling something, he subconsciously turned his head. It's too late. Hanju's voice entered his ears clearly. He only saw his left palm hitting him from the corner of his eye. Primordial divine rage. Divine rage that contained the power of 400 fiend celestials. It was even stronger than the primordial divine rage used earlier. The foolish sword sage's main body was instantly destroyed by Hanju's great dharmic powers. The billions of clones dissipated. Almost instantly, Hanju condensed the fiend celestial Dharma idol again, and continued to use the Dharma idol fusion technique. Great Tao sages had endless dharmic powers. Not to mention Hanju, even the foolish sword sage was the same. If he wanted to kill the enemy, it still depended on the profundity of the mystical power and the strength of his dharmic powers. As the primordial divine rage dispersed, the foolish sword sage appeared in the distance, leaving only his soul body that was difficult to recover. He looked at Hanju in shock. I'll take your life while you're injured. Hanju pressed forward again. The power of time sped up the fusion of his fiend celestials. Just as he appeared in front of the foolish sword sage, he had already fused with dozens of fiend celestial powers. He struck out with his left palm again. The foolish sword sage was frozen by the power of the imprisonment fiend celestial. There was also the power of the great Tao of space around him. He couldn't move at all. Boom, his palm struck, and his dermic powers crossed the primordial void. Foolish sword sage's soul dissipated. Hanju couldn't sense his aura, and immediately checked his surroundings. There was no information about the foolish sword sage. Was he dead? Hanju raised his eyebrows. At this moment, a line of words appeared in front of him. Foolish sword sage has developed hatred towards you. Current hatred points, 2 stars. Hanju raised his eyebrows. Could it be that this fellow had some tricks up his sleeve? Was he not completely dead? That made sense. He was not a great Dao divine spirit. He had suffered in the past and would definitely hold back. Hanju immediately jumped back to the heavenly Dao. Hatred concubine was still frozen and could not move. Seeing Hanju appear again, Hatred concubine panicked. She didn't know who Hanju had gone to deal with just now, but it ended so quickly. It was obvious that the other party didn't pose a threat to him at all. Please let me go. I was wrong. I'm willing to be a slave. Hate concubine begged for mercy incoherently. Clearly, she had been careless and had no way out. If this body died, she would also die. Hatred concubine has developed hatred towards you. Current hatred points, 6 stars. Hanju sighed secretly. If not for the system, he wouldn't have noticed the change in hatred concubine's emotions. After all, they were at the same realm. What a pity. Hanju fused with the power of the Fiend Celestial again. Looking at the Fiend Celestial Dharma idols that kept flashing above his head, she felt despair and begged for mercy. Hanju said expressionlessly, I might spare you in another situation, but you invaded the heavenly Tao. I have to destroy you and intimidate the chaos. The hatred race will also die with you. With that, Hanju struck out with his palm. The primordial divine rage fused with the power of dozens of fiend celestials was enough to kill hatred concubine. Boom, his dermic powers swept out and vanished into the depths of the dark forbidden zone. A spatial crack tore along the way. It was even wider and brighter than the chaotic heavenly road. Hanju checked his surroundings again. After confirming that there were no powerful enemies, he jumped back into the temple. The sages were stunned. Before they could recover, everything happened too quickly. All sages, kill the hatred race immediately. Don't let any spirit go. Heavenly Venerate Xiandu's voice resounded in the heavenly Tao. His tone was cold. Even mortals could feel his killing intent. Great Sage Void Soul immediately attacked. He had lost too much face previously and had to regain it. Without the divine robe Taoist and the hatred concubine, the next step was a one-sided slaughter. In the mysterious space, the cursed fiend celestial trembled and muttered, I knew it. I knew it. He didn't hate the divine robe Taoist. In his opinion, the divine robe Taoist had already calculated everything and had endless backup plans. However, Hanju was too powerful. Before absolute strength, any schemes were futile. The cursed fiend celestial sighed and left, quickly disappearing into the darkness. On the other side, Hanju landed on the 36th grade reincarnation world destruction Black Lotus. In his interpersonal relationships, Hatred Concubine's portrait had already disappeared. He had to kill Hatred Concubine in public as a warning. Probably many mighty figures in the chaos were spying on them. Hatred Concubine's death could intimidate them. However, he could keep the divine robe Taoist. At this moment, the divine robe Taoist soul was still struggling in the inner space of the Devour Fiend Celestial. He was already extremely weak and couldn't last much longer. Hanju immediately entered the devouring space and used the Great Change Sealing Palm to seal the divine robe Taoist. Then he brought him out and threw him into the primordial heavenly prison. Suddenly thinking of something, he asked in his mind, if the divine robe Taoist submits to me, will some existence sense the existence of the primordial heavenly prison? Hanju was hated after Qiu Shilai was enslaved. He had to be wary. The primordial heavenly prison was definitely the most terrifying function in the Tao field. The consequences would be unimaginable once it was exposed. Hanju thought for a moment. If he knew that the enemy could completely enslave him, he would definitely try his best to avoid them, or think of a way to kill them. 200 billion years of lifespan will be deducted. Do you want to continue? Continue. No, the great Tao divine spirit is not restricted. Hanju heaved a sigh of relief. What it meant was that no stronger person had left any methods in the divine robe Taoist's body. The divine robe Taoist had already jumped out of the role of a pawn. Hanju looked at the divine robe Taoist and suddenly felt that he was amiable. With this fellow and great sage void soul around, Hanju wouldn't need to take action, even if the heavenly Tao had enemies in the future. He could finally cultivate in peace and wait for the great Tao immeasurable calamity to arrive. At this moment, foolish sword sage sent you a dream. Do you accept? Hanju ignored him, afraid that the divine robe Taoist would suddenly wake up. He had to guard it strictly. Chapter 750 Heavenly Tao Justice. Chapter 750 Heavenly Tao Justice. After ignoring the foolish sword sage, Hanju suddenly thought of a question. The great Tao divine spirit is not restricted. Can the primordial heavenly prison enslave him? Yes, because of you, the system has already surpassed him. Hanju heaved a sigh of relief. It seemed that the system was still the best. It was even more ferocious than the great Tao. He couldn't help but become curious about the system's origins again. Unfortunately, the system could not explain it. Hanju thought of something else. The battle today has caused such a huge commotion. It endangered the heavenly Tao and involved the great Tao divine spirit. It didn't trigger the choice? Hanju asked in his mind, wanting another reward. The system has detected that the current crisis is not enough to threaten you or affect the great Tao immeasurable calamity, so it cannot trigger the choice. Please keep reading on Wuxia World. Hanju was helpless. Was it all because he was too strong? At this moment, foolish sword sage sent you a dream. Do you accept? Again, Hanju frowned and thought for a moment. He still accepted it lest he missed important information. However, before that, he sent out a clone to monitor the divine robe Taoist in the primordial heavenly prison. I want to know if it's dangerous to accept this dream? Hanju asked in his mind. The other party was not an ordinary person, and could be considered the strongest person he had encountered so far. As for the Tao ancestor, Pangu, the chaotic deities, and the Holy Mother of Order, he had only heard of them. 300 billion years of lifespan will be deducted. Do you want to continue? Continue? No, Hanju chose to accept the dream. After entering the dream, he appeared in the primordial void. A figure stood in front of him. It was the foolish sword sage. The two stood facing each other in silence. Hanju didn't know what to say. Threaten? Taunt? That was meaningless. Beg for mercy? Nuba, what logic was that? As for comforting him, that was even more meaningless. In any case, if Hanju lost, he would only feel even more uncomfortable. Speaking of which, Hanju had never lost in this life. It was because he was cautious enough not to fight without confidence. The foolish sword sage took a deep breath and said, "You're very strong. I've never met an existence like you. You're definitely invincible among your peers." Hanju said, "You're also very strong. In the same realm. No one has ever given me such pressure. I tried my best to defeat you." The foolish sword sage snorted. "Defeat is defeat. I can afford to lose. I didn't send you a dream this time to say anything harsh. Since you killed the divine robe Taoist, there's no grudge between us. I'll challenge you again in the future. Perhaps after defeating you, I'll have a chance to avenge myself." Hanju couldn't help but ask, "You, the divine robe Taoist, and that hatred concubine are almighty figures who have cultivated for countless years. Why do you have to attack someone's hometown? What do you want? Opportunities? Can you become stronger if you obtain the heavenly Tao? For prestige? Who dares to disobey the great Tao divine spirits in the chaos? You've already killed 2 great Tao divine spirits." The foolish sword sage snapped. Hanju said stubbornly, "I was forced. Who asked them to bully me? Those who bully others don't have a good outcome." The foolish sword sage said, "To borrow the words of you humans, the human heart is unfathomable. It's the same for deities. If they want to restrain the chaos, they have to rely on powerful strength. In the past, the great Tao divine spirits were like what you said. They cultivated in peace and did not cause trouble until they encountered a chaotic fiend celestial." Who? Pangu? IL-11. Hanju was silent. So that was the case. No wonder the great Tao divine spirit was afraid of the heavenly Tao. The foolish sword sage continued. In order to prevent Pangu from reviving, the great Tao divine spirits had once joined forces to deal with the heavenly Tao. However, they were stopped by the Tao ancestor. He promised that he would never let the heavenly Tao be too powerful. He begged the divine spirits to leave the heavenly Tao alive. This order lasted for countless years. In the long years, many mighty figures were born, until the Tao ancestor disappeared. Then you appeared. Hanju showed a frown. In that case, the current calamity of the heavenly Tao was his fault. Ridiculous. Foolish sword sage changed the topic. Let's not talk about this. I just want to know what mystical power you used earlier. Hanju said, Heavenly Tao Justice. Heavenly Tao Justice. The foolish sword sage muttered to himself and pondered. Hanju was afraid that he would play tricks, so he didn't reveal the technique's true name. Powerful figures could not only deduce karma, but also mystical powers. This was the meaning of a name. A name was a symbol of an individual existence. Hanju asked, Can you tell me how many great Tao divine spirits there are in the chaos, and how many great Tao supremes exist? He asked, seeing that the foolish sword sage was not stubborn. He knew too little about the chaos. Previously, when he asked great sage Void Soul, this fellow had been suppressed for a long time, and was also very unfamiliar with the world. As for the others, they were all weaker than Hanju. Foolish sword sage looked at him deeply and said, There aren't many great Tao divine spirits. No more than 20. Furthermore, they each guard a chaotic domain. After the divine robe Taoist died, a new great Tao divine spirit will naturally be born, or be supervised by other great Tao divine spirits. As for the great Tao supremes, they're extremely rare. There are no more than 2 of them that I know of. They are all hidden existences, and rarely appear in billions of years. You don't have to worry. Previously, the Holy Mother of Order attacked, because she was giving the divine robe Taoist face. I'm the same. It's just karma that I owed in the past. Hanju narrowed his eyes and asked, Is the great Tao Supreme the strongest existence? Foolish sword sage said proudly, That's right. That's the case in terms of cultivation realm. Legend has it that there are existences like the chaotic deities, but that's only a legend. In any case, I've never seen them before. You don't have to be too careful. After today's battle ends, no one will dare to disturb the heavenly Tao unless the great Tao divine spirits join forces. However, there are also conflicts between the great Tao divine spirits. How can they join forces? The divine robe Taoist and the despair Tao spirit were also enemies. They were just using the excuse of killing you. I see. Hanju heaved a sigh of relief. He was really afraid of falling into endless conflict. He thought of another question. There are also great Tao divine spirits in the deity realm of the ruins of End. Why don't they control the nearby domains? Foolish sword sage thought for a moment and replied, Perhaps it's a new one. Its cultivation is too weak. They are both great Tao divine spirits. At the same realm, lifespan is proportional to strength. There are indeed great Tao divine spirits hiding in the dark, but it's only a small number. I see. Perhaps the 7 Tao sage had hidden his identity as a great Tao divine spirit. He had grasped the power of 7 great Tao, and was indeed extraordinary. Unfortunately, he had encountered Hanju in advance. The 2 of them chatted for a while more until the dream ended. Foolish sword sage has a favorable impression of you. Current favorability, 3 stars. Hanju was confused. This fellow was really making friends with him? Was he beaten into submission? Hanju asked silently. Did the foolish sword sage lie in his conversation with me just now? 300 billion years of lifespan will be deducted. Do you want to continue? Continue. No, wow. This was a great guy. Hanju also had a favorable impression of him. Since the foolish sword sage was not lying, the heavenly Tao should be stable for some time. Hanju looked outside the heavenly Tao. With the great sage Void Soul's attack, countless living beings of the hatred race were annihilated. Now, the sages had sent disciples of the various sects to clean up the battlefield. They had returned to the 33rd heaven, to repair the heavenly Tao with heavenly venerate Xiandu. Chapter 751 Prophecy of the Immeasurable Calamity. 500,000 years old. Chapter 751 Prophecy of the Immeasurable Calamity. 500,000 years old, this heavenly Tao defensive battle started and ended quickly. There were not many casualties on the heavenly Tao's side, but all living beings were still very excited, because they finally saw how powerful the divine might heavenly sage was. All the cultivators in Chaotic City, Zenith Heaven Golden Immortals, and pseudo-sages saw Hanju's attack. The cultivators who went to the chaotic heavenly road later could also see the spatial crack left behind by the battlefield and the long spatial cave that was even wider than the chaotic heavenly road. It was shocking. Oh my God, what cultivation level is this to cause such terrifying destruction? The great Tao divine spirit is nothing much. Too fast. Is this the divine might heavenly sage? I'm still packing my bags. The heavenly Tao is mighty. The ancient people didn't lie to me. The divine might heavenly sage is indeed powerful. The legends are all true. Where's the hatred race? They're all dead. The outcome of the hatred race also alerted all the living beings in the heavenly Tao. Please keep reading on Wuxia World. This was a huge battle. If the heavenly Tao lost, they would probably die. This battle was mentioned many times when the sages preached the Tao in the future. They warned their descendants never to indulge in the current peace. Hanju didn't care about the opinions of all living beings. To be honest, he was not excited. The divine robe Taoist and the foolish sword sage could not be insta-killed. Hanju was still filled with danger. He had to hurry up and cultivate. He had to insta-kill the enemy if he attacked in the future. Just as the foolish sword sage had said, after this battle, no mighty figure would dare to invade the heavenly Tao again. 1,000 years later, the heavenly Tao was successfully repaired. The 33rd heaven returned to its former peace. The sages were stimulated and began to focus on cultivating. After witnessing Hanju's strength, they all felt tiny, including Great Sage Void Soul. Hanju moved Great Sage Void Soul into the 100-peak Immortal River. After the heavenly Tao recovered, he was expelled by it and was quite depressed. Fortunately, Hanju took the time to move him in. Killing the hatred race allowed Great Sage Void Soul to obtain a lot of heavenly Tao merit. But it was not enough for him to fuse with the heavenly Tao because he was too strong. Hanju was an exception. He was a heavenly Tao life form himself, so the heavenly Tao was used to his existence. Furthermore, he usually stayed in the Tao field, and his cultivation completely bypassed the heavenly Tao. Just like that, peace returned. 5,000 years later, Hanju was cultivating when a notification suddenly appeared in front of him. The evil heavenly emperor sent you a dream. Do you accept? Hanju's heart trembled. Did something happen again? He was traumatized, but the other party was the evil heavenly emperor, so he could not refuse. He immediately accepted the dream. The dream was still the forest outside the Jade Pure Sacred Sect. Seeing Hanju, the evil heavenly emperor clicked his tongue in wonder. You're really powerful. You can even kill the divine robe Taoist. It's said that that battle even involved the leader of the hatred race, Hatred Concubine, and the foolish sword sage. You became famous after that battle. Now the name of the divine might heavenly sage is spreading in the chaos. Hanju frowned and asked, Am I very famous? The evil heavenly emperor smiled. It's neither big nor small. After all, the chaos is vast and boundless. There are always places where they can't hear your reputation. Hanju looked worried. He didn't pretend to be calm in front of the evil heavenly emperor. The evil heavenly emperor smiled helplessly. What are you thinking? The current you can be considered a top mighty figure of the chaos. You became famous after a battle, and only left behind deterrence, not endless trouble. The rise of the heavenly Tao is already unstoppable. In addition, the great Tao immeasurable calamity is coming. The great Tao divine spirits are busy avoiding the calamity, and shouldn't come looking for trouble with you. Not only that, but the life faction is also becoming stronger. Some time ago, they seemed to be stimulated by you, and also attacked a great Tao divine spirit. Therefore you are not alone. The great Tao divine spirits can't focus all their attention on you. Hanju was speechless. In that case he had to thank life. The evil heavenly emperor said seriously, I sent you a dream this time to tell you something. I know an ancient existence. Not long ago, I visited him and asked him to predict the great Tao immeasurable calamity. Hanju raised his eyebrows. An ancient existence who could predict the great Tao calamity? Could it be a Tao creator? After talking to the foolish sword sage, Hanju discovered that the living beings of the chaos didn't believe in the existence of the chaotic deities at all. Even the once great Tao supreme foolish sword sage thought that the great Tao supreme realm was already the strongest. He deduced that the sign of the great Tao immeasurable calamity is the primordial fiend celestial. This primordial fiend celestial's potential is unparalleled since ancient times. It's unimaginable. He can sweep through people of the same realm, and even cross realms to kill enemies. To him, cultivation realms are nothing. The evil heavenly emperor recalled the words of that ancient existence, and felt a chill in his heart. Hanju had a strange expression. Crap. Could the battle of the heavenly Tao not have made people think that he was the primordial fiend celestial? The evil heavenly emperor also thought of this. His expression also became strange. Are you the primordial fiend celestial? Hanju denied it firmly. How is that possible? I was born as a mortal. You can deduce it. My parents are both mortals. How can they give birth to a primordial fiend celestial? Aren't chaotic fiend celestials fatherless, let alone primordial fiend celestials? The evil heavenly emperor smiled. That's true. Don't be nervous. I know something about the primordial fiend celestial, and know that you're not it. What do you know? The primordial fiend celestial has yet to be born. What's there to be afraid of? He can overturn the chaos when he's born? We can just kill him in the cradle. Hanju didn't care, but he was very nervous. Isn't that my son? I knew it. The one who causes the great Tao immeasurable calamity is my son. Hanju had a bold thought. If his son was never born, wouldn't the great Tao immeasurable calamity never arrive? No wonder it took 10 billion years. Hanju couldn't surpass the primordial fiend celestial, and couldn't bear to let his son give up his talent. He could only let him stay in his mother's womb. The evil heavenly emperor smiled. Of course. I guess the other mighty figures will also know about this. The chaos will stir up a trend of finding the primordial fiend celestial. The prodigies in the future will be miserable. He said it casually, but Hanju heard a hint of pity. Countless geniuses would die because of a prophecy. Hanju didn't feel guilty. He was not someone who valued all living beings more than his family. Furthermore, even without his son, as a primordial fiend celestial, he would have to face all the hostility of the chaos sooner or later. Before that, he wanted to secretly cultivate until the entire chaos could not do anything to him. The two of them continued chatting. An hour later, the dream ended. Hanju observed the heavenly Tao. After confirming that there was no danger, he checked his interpersonal relationships. The friends he cared about were still there. He continued cultivating. Time passed. Year after year passed. Thousands of years later, 3 lines of words appeared in front of Hanju, who was cultivating. Detected that you are 500,000 years old, and your life has taken another step forward. You have the following choices. 1. Come out immediately and spread the name of the primordial fiend celestial, stirring up the great Tao immeasurable calamity. You can obtain a great Tao fragment, a creation spirit stone, a heavenly Tao spirit stone, a supreme treasure, a mystical power inheritance, and a new function of the system. 2. Cultivate in a low-profile manner, and stay away from trouble. You can obtain a great Tao fragment, a creation spirit stone, a heavenly Tao spirit stone, and a supreme treasure. Chapter 752 Mysterious Mighty Figure. Chapter 752 Mysterious Mighty Figure, Stirring the Great Tao Immeasurable Calamity? Hanju felt that the system was broken. There had been such a choice in the past, but this time, it was too exaggerated. Hanju directly chose the second option. You choose to cultivate in a low-profile manner and stay away from trouble. You obtained a great Tao fragment, a creation spirit stone, a heavenly Tao spirit stone, and a supreme treasure. Congratulations on obtaining the chaotic supreme treasure Grand Primordium Divine Crown. Grand Primordium Divine Crown. Defensive chaotic supreme treasure. It is formed from the head of a Grand Primordium deity when he died. It contains the strongest defense, and can resist great Dao level attacks. Great. Another defense of supreme treasure. Please keep reading on Wuxia World. Hanju immediately took out the Grand Primordium Divine Crown and started to make it recognize him as its owner. The Grand Primordium Divine Crown was purple. There were 2 statues on the crown. They were symmetrical on both sides like horns. They were both domineering and had sinister expressions, as if the scene before the battle had frozen. After 80 years, Hanju finally refined it into his own Dharma treasure. After wearing this crown, Hanju looked even more handsome and dignified, like the king of the gods from ancient legends. It was terrifying. Hanju was in a good mood and began to think about which fiend celestial to use the creation spirit stone on. Forget it. After the heavenly constellation fiend celestial was the 9 fiend celestial, according to the order. He had comprehended the grand unity aspect. Hanju began to fuse. He continued cultivating after the fusion process stabilized. As for what to use the heavenly Dao spirit stone on, he still had to consider it. It had been a long time since he had cursed someone. If he used the heavenly Dao spirit stone on the heaven-opening axe, how far could it go from a chaotic supreme treasure? What kind of power would it have if the primordial divine rage was used together with the heaven-opening axe that surpassed the chaotic supreme treasure level? The battle with the foolish sword sage made Hanju a little dissatisfied with his strength. He wanted to increase his combat ability. As for the curse power, it was very difficult to curse an existence stronger than him to death. Time passed. After the hatred race failed to attack the heavenly Dao, the development of the heavenly Dao welcomed another explosive period. The sages were all stimulated. They completely cooperated with heavenly Venerate Xian Du's arrangements and usually focused on cultivation. This also caused more and more influential figures to be born. They began to gain power and become famous. The cultivators who went to the chaos also spread the name of the divine might heavenly sage everywhere. In addition, the death of the great Dao divine spirit was true. The divine might heavenly sage's reputation became greater and greater, making the heavenly Dao cultivators feel proud. The providence of the heavenly Dao sword. In the blink of an eye, 50,000 years passed. Hanju was getting closer and closer to breaking through. He finally saw the opportunity to break through and was extremely touched. Heaven did not let down those who worked hard. He opened his eyes. More than 1,000 years ago, heavenly Venerate Xian Du had sent him a voice transmission, asking for him to go to the Universal Hall after his seclusion ended. Hanju first came to the second Dao field and released the 9 fiend celestial to let Morong Qi receive him. During this period of time, Han Ming had become a primordial chaos zenith heaven golden immortal. The flesh fiend celestial and the void fiend celestial had reached the pseudo-sage realm. The other fiend celestials had all improved, but breaking through was not so easy after reaching the sage realm. Hanju chatted with Li Yao for a while before returning to the main Dao field and jumping into the Universal Hall. Heavenly Venerate Xian Du opened his eyes and immediately sent a voice transmission to the other sages when he saw him. The South Extreme Heavenly Venerate Sect Master Tianju, Emperor Shao, Heavenly Venerate Wufa, Qiu Shilai, Feng Liang, Huang Zuantian Jin Shen, Pan Xian Su Dudao Su Qi, and Li Taigu arrived one after another. Facing Hanju, they all bowed with extreme respect. After the battle tens of thousands of years ago, the sages had completely submitted. Hanju and his slave sages didn't need to act anymore. Hanju nodded slightly and didn't say anything. In any case, the leader was Heavenly Venerate Xian Du. He had never managed the Heavenly Dao. Not in the past and not in the future. Heavenly Venerate Xian Du was a very qualified sage. Heavenly Venerate Xian Du said, "Not long ago, Shi Du Dao and Li Daokong's Heavenly Dao providence was severed. 2 sage positions became vacant. In addition to the recent strengthening of the Heavenly Dao, another sage position opened. There are a total of 3. Do you have any candidates?" The sages looked at Hanju. After all, it involved Li Daokong. Hanju said, "You can decide for yourselves. As for Li Daokong, don't worry about him. I know what to do." Hearing this, the sages felt relieved and began to discuss. Hanju felt bored and started to check his emails. Although such a meeting was boring, he had to attend it. Only then could he become an authority. He didn't want the heavenly Tao to change drastically in the future. The new sages would not be convinced by him, and would want to cause trouble. In any case, participating would not delay him much. Your good friend evil heavenly emperor was attacked by a mysterious mighty figure. Your disciple Zhou Fan was attacked by demons X78900002. Your son Han Tua was attacked by demons X89021143. Your disciple Dao Sovereign has entered a mysterious space-time dimension. Your disciple Zhao Xianyuan has entered a mysterious space-time dimension. Your good friend Jiang Yi has entered a mysterious space-time dimension. Your good friend Heavenly Lord of Primordial Beginning was attacked by a mysterious mighty figure. Your good friend Huang Zuantian split heaven and earth, and created the chaotic world. His providence has increased greatly. Your good friend Foolish Sword Sage has comprehended a sword Dao mystical power. His providence has increased greatly. It was as exciting as ever. Hanju was curious. Are all the mysterious mighty figures stronger than me? He was already a great Dao sage. Very few people could be considered mighty figures in front of him. After reaching the freedom realm, and having no karma with you, they are all considered mysterious mighty figures. I see. Hanju was relieved. He thought that there were as many great Dao sages as dogs. He continued reading the emails. Huang Zuantian established a chaotic world? He couldn't help but glance at him. This fellow had made a huge move. He had not even severed with the providence of the heavenly Tao. Sensing his gaze, Huang Zuantian couldn't help but straighten his back and salute him with his eyes. He would talk to him later. Hanju thought silently. Huang Zuantian's master, Sect Master Tianju, had already submitted to Hanju. There was no need to beat around the bush. The emails after that were also exciting. After all, after tens of thousands of years, almost all his friends had made a move. An hour later, the sage position was finalized. Heavenly Venerate Xiandu said, "Recently, a mighty figure from the chaos has held a banquet and invited the masters of the world to befriend him and discuss how to face the future great Tao immeasurable calamity. What do you think?" Qiu Shilai was the first to speak. "I think it's fine. With the heavenly Tao's strength, we might even become the leader of the many worlds in the chaos. They definitely invited the heavenly Tao definitely to seek protection. Otherwise, why would a freedom mighty figure come to organize it?" Heavenly Venerate Wufa glanced at him and snorted. "What do you mean? Is a freedom sage weak?" Qiu Shilai knew that he had said something wrong, and had no choice but to shut up. The other sages expressed their opinions. They had to vote to decide. Hanju didn't participate. In the end, Pan Xian, Sect Master Tianju, and Feng Liang voted in favor to go. Pan Xian was a freedom sage, and represented the deterrence of the heavenly Tao. Sect Master Tianju would lead the negotiations and Feng Liang was in charge of plotting. The sages left after the discussion ended. Hanju said, "Fellow Taoist Huang, can you invite me to your Tao field for a chat?" Huang Zuantian immediately agreed. The other sages pretended not to hear that. Recently, Huang Zuantian had indeed been a little mysterious. He often went to the chaos. It was a good thing for Hanju to teach him a lesson. Heavenly Venerate Xiandu secretly sighed. Fortunately, there was Hanju. He was also worried that Huang Zuantian would betray the heavenly Tao. Chapter 753 600,000 years old, Successful Reincarnation. Chapter 753 600,000 years old, Successful Reincarnation in the Palace. Hanju and Huang Zuantian sat opposite each other. Hanju sat at the main seat, while Huang Zuantian, the master of the Tao field, sat as a guest. Without waiting for Hanju to ask, Huang Zuantian said, "I created a world in the chaos more than 20,000 years ago." He spoke endlessly, and was very excited as if he was showing off his achievements in front of his elders. Hanju listened carefully, and did not interrupt. Huang Zuantian began to talk about his reason for creating a world. It was naturally because of primordial origin. Hanju already knew about primordial origin. This was a secret between the two. With the primordial origin's help, even if he established the chaotic world, Huang Zuantian did not sever the providence of the heavenly Tao. Primordial origin said that this was a way out for him. All these years, Huang Zuantian's cultivation level had been increasing. He was already very close to breaking through to the primordial chaos zenith, heaven golden immortal realm. Please keep reading on Wuxia World. EU Master, don't worry. I'll always be loyal to you. If not for your guidance, how could I be here today? Huang Zuantian finally expressed his loyalty, making Han Ju feel very comfortable. He suddenly understood why Huang Zuantian could reach his current height. As long as Huang Zuantian's favorability didn't decrease, he was still willing to believe him. Han Ju instructed, be careful. Think about how you got to where you are today. Never be careless. Maintain a good relationship with the heavenly Tao sages. The current heavenly Tao is already united. As for who has this rope, you should know very well. If you need help, you can also ask the sages. Don't isolate yourself. That will only cause unnecessary trouble for you. Huang Zuantian nodded. Thank you for your reminder, Master. I will remember it. He had seen through it before, but Han Ju didn't admit it personally, so he couldn't trust the other sages. Now that Han Ju said so, how could he not be relieved? The two of them chatted for a while more, mostly about Huang Zuantian's experiences in the chaos. Han Ju listened to the story with relish. Huang Zuantian heaved a sigh of relief after he left. Although he was very loyal to Han Ju, the pressure he gave him was too strong. A voice sounded in Huang Zuantian's mind. This person is not simple. If he wants to attack me, he will definitely have a way to extract me from your body. Huang Zuantian said proudly, of course. Otherwise, why would I follow him? Ever since he knew Han Ju, he had never seen him lose, or even be in a sorry state. After returning to the Taoist temple, Han Ju continued cultivating. He only had one goal now, and that was to break through as soon as possible. Once he closed his eyes, it meant that another era had passed. Ever since the divine robe Taoist was defeated, no expert dared to attack the heavenly Tao again. New worlds also constantly appeared in the dark forbidden zone near the heavenly Tao. They were all created by the heavenly Tao cultivators. Some Zenith Heaven Golden Immortals with poor potential discovered that creating a world could allow them to advance to the pseudo-sage realm, causing more and more Zenith Heaven Golden Immortals to head to the dark forbidden zone. Year after year passed. Soon, Han Ju was 600,000 years old. Detected that you are 600,000 years old. You have the following choices. 1. Exit seclusion immediately, and spread the name of the primordial fiend celestial, stirring up the great Tao immeasurable calamity. You can obtain a great Tao fragment, a creation spirit stone, and a heavenly Tao spirit stone. 2. Cultivate in a low-profile manner, and stay away from trouble. You can obtain a great Tao fragment, a creation spirit stone, and a supreme treasure. Han Ju opened his eyes, and discovered that the reward had decreased. Perhaps 500,000 years meant more. Han Ju silently chose the second option. You chose to cultivate in a low-profile manner and stay away from trouble. You obtained a great Tao fragment, a creation spirit stone, and a supreme treasure. Congratulations on obtaining the chaotic supreme treasure, chaotic diamond bracelet, defensive chaotic supreme treasure. It is a supreme treasure born at the beginning of the chaos. It contains the strongest defensive light, and can block great Tao attacks. Another defensive supreme treasure. Han Ju almost fainted. Back when he was still growing, the system loved to give him defensive Dharma treasures. In addition to the chaotic diamond bracelet, he had a total of 3 chaotic defensive supreme treasures. Who could break through his defense? Han Ju immediately took out the chaotic diamond bracelet and started to make it recognize him as its owner. After 100 years, he finally refined it into this Dharma treasure. The chaotic diamond bracelet was golden. It was originally a golden ring, but after wearing it, it transformed into 2 wisps of golden flames that wrapped around his wrists. It looked very beautiful. Han Ju looked up at the divine robe Taoist, who was still in the primordial heavenly prison. It had been almost 120,000 years, but this fellow had yet to be enslaved. Han Ju had to renew the seal every 10,000 years to prevent him from awakening. Then he took out the creation spirit stone and fused it with a ball of fiend celestial chi in the primordial world. This time, he chose the wind-shaking fiend celestial. After the fusion process stabilized, he would divert his attention. He was already very close to breaking through to the mid-stage Great Tao primordial chaos realm. So he was not in a hurry. He wanted to see the development of the heavenly Tao first. During this period of time, 3 new sages appeared in the heavenly Tao. They were Primordial Chaos Buddha, Zhang Guxing, and Long Hao. The reason why Primordial Chaos Buddha could become a Buddha was that Hanju sent a voice transmission to Qiu Shilai and asked him to choose him. After all, Primordial Chaos Buddha's previous life was the Primordial Chaos Heavenly Devil. He was ordered by Hanju to hide in the Buddhist sect. Although he didn't contribute, his favorability didn't decrease. Zhang Guxing was chosen by Heavenly Venerate Wufa. There was an 80% chance that this was in consideration of Hanju. He had very little karma in the heavenly Tao, and Zhang Guxing was one of the few. Long Hao was completely chosen by Hanju. Apart from him, there were a total of 16 heavenly Tao sages in the current immortal world. They far exceeded any previous era. The new sages almost did not rely on the primordial purple chi. Reality proved that the primordial purple chi was only an excuse. In the past, there had been no new sages. It was mainly because the heavenly Tao was too weak and could not carry more sages. The birth of every new sage excited the cultivators of the immortal world, who did not want to become a sage. Hanju took in the various forms of living beings. The situation of the heavenly Tao was still considered peaceful. Although the hidden sect was not outstanding, its development was at least stable. He did not need the hidden sect to unite the heavenly Tao. That wouldn't be good. He needed to give the other factions some hope. Only then could they continue to climb. Hanju's situation had never been to control the heavenly Tao. In the past, the heavenly Tao was only a shield. Now, he only hoped that the heavenly Tao could protect his disciples. After observing the heavenly Tao, Hanju started to check his emails. He wondered if something interesting had happened in his circle of friends recently. Email after email appeared in front of Hanju and refreshed at an extremely fast speed. In an instant, he read millions of emails. An email attracted Hanju's attention. Your enemy Pangu has successfully reincarnated. Pangu, does this fellow want to cause trouble? Hanju narrowed his eyes and fell into deep thought. Pangu's hatred for him was not high. He could only say that he was dissatisfied and not an enemy. However, Pangu's history was too valiant. The entire chaos treated him as a nightmare and was afraid that he would revive. Unexpectedly, he did not revive but chose the path of reincarnation. How did he reincarnate? Chapter 754 Dallas Deep Region. Chapter 754 Dallas Deep Region. Where was Pangu reincarnated? Hanju asked in his mind. If he didn't understand it clearly, he wouldn't be able to eat or sleep in peace. After all, the heavenly Tao was created by Pangu. If he returned, how could the heavenly Tao stop him? 100 trillion years of lifespan will be deducted. Do you want to continue? Although his value was ridiculous, he had to continue. Hanju entered the illusion. He opened his eyes and discovered that he was standing in the starry sky. Below him was a desolate planet without flowers and plants. Looking up, countless such planets were floating in the entire starry sky. No signs of living beings could be seen. Hanju looked over and didn't see Pangu on the desolate planet. At this moment, a beam of light descended from above at an extremely fast speed. It directly collided with the barren planet, causing the entire planet to tremble violently. It stirred up circles of dust that were tens of thousands of feet tall. Please keep reading on Wuxia World. After the dust dissipated, Hanju saw a huge egg. The eggshell was transparent and emitted a red light. There were many veins on the surface, and he could vaguely see a figure curled up inside. Was that Pangu? But what was this place? Hanju frowned. A line of words appeared in front of him. Dallas Deep Region, Chaotic Desolate Domain. There are no great Tao rules, no karma, no past or future. Hanju frowned even more. Although he knew the name of this place, he still didn't know where it was. The illusion shattered. Hanju returned to reality. He checked Pangu's profile picture. Pangu cultivation unknown. Chaotic fiend celestial, creator of the heavenly Tao, ancestor of all things, fiend celestial slayer. Because you severed the will control he left in Pan-Exian, he has developed displeasure towards you. Current hatred points, 1 star. Why was his cultivation still unknown? Didn't he reincarnate? Could it be that it was not really a reincarnation, but a Dharma idol? Hanju asked in his mind. How long will it take for Pangu to kill me after he reincarnates? 100 trillion years of lifespan will be deducted. Do you want to continue? Continue. Unless you stop cultivating or his main body revives, he will never be able to kill you. Unless the main body revives. I knew it. Hanju's brows relaxed. No matter what, Pangu's reincarnation could not threaten him. Hanju stopped thinking about it and continued reading the emails. Time passed quickly. Another 30,000 years passed. Primordial Heavenly Prison has successfully enslaved the target. Divine Robe Taoist has a favorable impression of you. Current favorability max. Hanju opened his eyes and frowned. The Divine Robe Taoist in the Primordial Heavenly Prison was still in a soul state. Hanju removed the seal, and his body began to recover. Hanju checked his profile picture. Divine Robe Taoist. Perfected Great Tao Primordial Chaos Realm. Great Tao Divine Spirit. Current favorability, max. It was a simple introduction, but it was enough. He was clearly only a minor realm higher than Great Sage Void Soul. The enslavement time had increased by 10 times. Divine Robe Taoist knelt down respectfully after he recovered. Hanju asked in his mind, will I expose the existence of the Primordial Heavenly Prison if I let the Divine Robe Taoist back and make him not reveal his experience of being enslaved? It was better to let the Divine Robe Taoist stay here and continue being a great Tao Divine Spirit. It could protect the chaotic domain where the Heavenly Tao was. From the upper echelons to the bottom, they were all Hanju's people. 200 billion years of lifespan will be deducted. Do you want to continue? Continue. No, Hanju immediately smiled upon seeing this word. He began to chat with the Divine Robe Taoist. Several hours later, the Divine Robe Taoist was sent out of the Heavenly Tao and flew into the darkness. Hanju had already told him everything he needed to know. In the future, the Divine Robe Taoist would be an important pawn of his. Then, Hanju came to the second Tao field and released wind-shaking Fiend Celestial to let Morongqi receive him. Morongqi had already become the leader of the Fiend Celestial army. The Fiend Celestials might be unhappy with each other, but they still acknowledged him. After all, every one of them was received by Morongqi. Furthermore, they could tell that Hanju trusted him. As the combat Fiend Celestial, Morongqi was not weak either. He was often evenly matched, even when he fought the heavenly constellation Fiend Celestial in the simulation trial. Hanju chatted with Li Yao for a while before arriving at Yongdu's cave abode. In the long years, Yongdu was almost depressed. As more and more Fiend Celestials appeared, his potential was extremely blinding here. Even he felt that he was not worthy. Although Hanju could help him change his bloodline, he couldn't even see a trace of hope at the basic pseudo-sage threshold. Yongdu opened his eyes and hurriedly knelt down when he saw that it was Hanju. He was excited and knew what he had to face next. Hanju said, I've indeed made you suffer all these years. I understand the burden in your mind, but I just want you to remember this burden. No matter what is your potential, you can never lose your reverence and determination to cultivate diligently. Do you understand? Yongdu said with a trembling voice. I understand your efforts. I've never dared to slack off, much less complain. If not for you, I would have long reincarnated thousands of times. I'd still be immortal, floating in the cycle of reincarnation. Hanju didn't say anything else. He directly dispersed his body and placed his soul into the primordial world. He then teleported into the main Tao field. Yongdu was already a Zenith Heaven Golden Immortal, but it was very difficult for his cultivation level to increase. He couldn't even see hope in the mid-stage. This was the upper limit of his potential. After all, Hanju didn't preach the Tao as often in the second Tao field. In fact, if not for the fact that the spirit Qi in the second Tao field was incomparable to the heavenly Tao, Yang Du wouldn't even have the hope of becoming a Zenith Heaven Golden Immortal. Hanju sat on the 36th grade reincarnation world destruction Black Lotus, and fused the Fiend Celestial Chi of Yang Du and the Duga Fiend Celestial. The reason was that their names were similar. Hanju multitasked. As he used his dermic powers to help Yang Du fuse with the Fiend Celestial Chi, he began to preach the Tao in the main Tao field. The sudden lecture made all the disciples in the 100-peak Immortal River unable to react in time, as they were pulled into the Great Tao of extreme origin. Chaos Great Tao Tower. Dressed in white, Hanyu came to the hall with his grand disciple Qin Ling, and met the Tower Master Zhou Fan. The current Zhou Fan wore a python-patterned black robe, and was extremely domineering. He was no longer the hot-blooded youth from before. Zhou Fan opened his eyes, and they lit up when he saw Hanyu. Too similar. He was even more like Hanju than Han Tua, his own son. He even instinctively wanted to kneel down. Fortunately, he restrained himself in time, and no one noticed. Hanyu cupped his hands and bowed. Zhou Fan did not put on airs and said, "Your master has already become life. I advise you not to look for him anymore lest you get into trouble." Life? Hanyu frowned. He had been in the chaos for hundreds of thousands of years, and had naturally heard of the legend of life. Life was already in existence that terrified cultivators in the chaos. They destroyed and slaughtered everywhere, committing all sorts of evil. He subconsciously wanted to deny it. But on second thought, what if Li Daokong was forced to become life? It was not impossible. Qin Ling asked, "Even the hidden sect can't touch the life faction? Your master has killed 13 lives." Zhou Fan glared at him and scolded him. "Isn't my master your grandmaster? How can you address him as your master? Where are your manners?" Chapter 755 Breakthrough to the Midstage, Beginning the Curse. Chapter 755 Breakthrough to the Midstage, Beginning the Curse. Alright. He's my grandmaster. You're also my grandmaster." Qin Ling said helplessly. How could he not understand what he meant? Zhou Fan looked pleased. He hesitated for a moment and said in a low voice, "Don't investigate Li Daokong's matter anymore. My master knows this matter. It involves confidential information. You should know what it means." Hanyu's eyes lit up when he heard this. He asked excitedly, "My master didn't succumb?" Zhou Fan nodded. Hanyu took a deep breath and finally smiled. He knew it. In his heart, his master was the most righteous person. How could he become someone who committed all sorts of evil? Zhou Fan asked. "In another few thousand years, the heavenly court will come as a guest. At that time, Han Tua will come. Do you want to stay and see him? The current heavenly court is expanding greatly. It's not easy to see him." Hanyu shook his head. "What will he say even if I see him? Since I know about master, I should go back and protect Buzhou Divine Mountain. Please keep reading on Wuxia World." Zhou Fan had no objections. After exchanging a few pleasantries with Hanyu, he asked Qin Ling to bring him to stay for the time being, and leave after some time. After walking out of the Great Tao Tower, Qin Ling couldn't help but say, "Grandmaster, why don't you cultivate with me? The heavenly Tao is running out now. With your cultivation level, it's very difficult for you to have any opportunities in the heavenly Tao." The patrolling soldiers passing by bowed to Qin Ling. It was enough to show his status. Hanyu took in everything and smiled. "I know, but I'm not someone who likes to take risks. I'll stay in the heavenly Tao and obediently protect Buzhou Divine Mountain. I don't ask for the sage position, but for longevity and peace." Qin Ling hesitated. All the words turned into a sigh in his heart. Everyone had their own ambitions. Cultivating was not the only direction. 10,000 years later, Hanju opened his eyes. Seeing that Li Xianao and Tao Comprehension, Sword were waiting outside the 100-peak Immortal River, he moved them inside. "This is not a good idea. I can't let them wait every time." Hanju thought silently. Then he raised his hand and waved. He created a clone that was especially used to handle visitors. The clone was him. As long as he did not develop independent thoughts, he would not be rejected by the system. This clone was not too strong. It was only a wisp of Hanju's soul. Hanju made him stay in a corner of the Taoist temple. The strange deity was attracted by the clone, and immediately came over to wrap around it. The strange deity shared the same life as Hanju. Now it also had strength close to a great Tao sage. Of course, it was only close. It had to work hard if it wanted to attain the great Tao. The great Tao realm was not so easy to attain. It was probably its current limit. It would be very difficult for it to improve in the future. This was the rule of the great Tao. Soon Li Xian'eo came to visit. Hanju let him in. Without waiting for him to speak, he said, "You don't have to tell me about the development of the hidden sect. I can see it all. You have learned to be a leader." Li Xian'eo was overjoyed when he heard that. He hurriedly said humbly, No, you're the absolute ruler." Hanju didn't reply. He was no longer interested in the hidden sect. He couldn't be bothered as long as it was on the right track. Li Xian'eo gritted his teeth and said, "Sect master, I came here for something. Tell me. I want to attain the Tao." Li Xian'eo immediately felt relieved after saying that. Hanju stared at him and didn't speak immediately. Li Xian'eo braced himself and said, "Now there are more and more heavenly Tao sages. It's the same for pseudo-sages and zenith heaven golden immortals. If my cultivation level is low, many things will be a restriction." The hidden sect of the heavenly Tao was already a very powerful providence sect. Li Xian'eo had even become a pseudo-sage, but he was only at the early stage. He felt danger. Li Daokong had long become a sage. Hanju said, "Okay, this will be determined in the future." Li Xian'eo was overjoyed again and hurriedly thanked him. Hanju waved his hand, and Li Xian'eo immediately went out. He thought for a moment and told his clone to go to the fusang tree. If a disciple wanted to go out, he could just go to the fusang tree and not disturb his cultivation time and time again. The clone left, and so did the strange deity. Looking at the strange deity, Hanju suddenly sighed. After so many years, the strange deity had also gained a certain level of intelligence, but no one could see it. It had always been lonely. Should he let it out? In the past, it was afraid that it would be devoured by the inauspicious evil. Now there was no need to worry. How many were its match among the inauspicious evil? I'll see after some time. I'll break through first. Then, Hanju closed his eyes and continued cultivating. 8,405 years later, Hanju successfully broke through. As he consolidated his cultivation, he checked his attributes panel. Name: Hanju. Lifespan: 648,505/31, 079, 999, 999, 999, 999, 999, 999, 999, 999, 999. Race: Primordial Fiend Celestial Immeasurable Emperor. Cultivation: Mid-stage Great Tao Primordial Chaos Realm, Perfect Sage. Technique: Primordial Chaos Reincarnation Great Tao. Heavenly Cycle Body Tempering, Great Tao. Great Tao of Life and Death. Great Tao of Karma, Great Tao of Extreme Origin. It had been nearly 400,000 years since his last breakthrough. The Great Tao was difficult, but the further one went, the harder it became. Fortunately, Hanju's lifespan had tripled. He didn't cultivate in vain. Hanju was in a good mood after finally breaking through. He set a goal for himself. He would break through to the late-stage Great Tao Primordial Chaos Realm in 1,000,000 years. He would reach the Great Tao Supreme Realm in 10 million years. 10 million years, that's really long, Hanju muttered to himself. He couldn't imagine that the heavenly Tao sages had experienced billions of years, and their cultivation levels hadn't changed. Wouldn't that be crazy? Hanju was filled with danger after not breaking through for hundreds of thousands of years. After 500 years, Hanju's cultivation finally stabilized. He first raised all his Sword Tao mystical powers to the limit before cultivating the Grand Unity aspect. This time, he spent 200 years learning 300 Fiend Celestial Dharma idols, accumulating 849 Dharma idols. His strength soared. Hanju didn't enter the simulation trial immediately. Instead, he took out the Heaven Opening Axe and the Heavenly Tao Spirit Stone. He prepared to upgrade the Heaven Opening Axe. He wanted to see what level surpassed a chaotic supreme treasure. Soon, the Heaven Opening Axe fused with the Heavenly Tao Spirit Stone, but it took time to level up. Hanju put the heaven-opening axe into the system space and waited for the upgrade to succeed. He took out the Book of Misfortune. Touching the book's cover, Hanju revealed a hint of nostalgia and muttered, "How many years has it been? I've ignored you and made you useless. Today, I'll let you curse until you're satisfied." The Book of Misfortune seemed to sense his joy as a black light flashed across its surface. Hanju started cursing the first life Black Sovereign. 6 stars of hatred. He had to be the first. Even if he didn't die from the curse, he had to make the first life Black Sovereign vigilant, so that his attention would not land on him. The cultivation of the Great Tao Sage was cursed by the Great Tao Numinous Treasure, the Book of Misfortune. Even Hanju could feel the surging curse power. It was a little terrifying. Hanju began to gloat. "First life Black Sovereign, how many years of my lifespan can you withstand?" Chapter 756 Ultimate Tao Treasure. Chapter 756 Ultimate Tao Treasure. Hanju's lifespan began to decrease after cursing for 5 days. The end of the lifespan number jumped quickly, but it wasn't affected much compared to the entire string of numbers. Hanju could feel how strong his curse was. Ordinary sages probably didn't even have the right to deduct his lifespan. This feeling of doing whatever he wanted was too satisfying. It was as if this book could kill all enemies in the world. 10 billion years. 100 billion years. A trillion years. 100 trillion years. 1 quadrillion years. / please keep reading on Wuxia World. EU 10 quadrillion years. Hanju finally saw an email. Because of your curse, the Tao heart of your enemy, the first life Black Sovereign, was damaged. Interesting, very tough. Hanju put down the Book of Misfortune and didn't continue cursing. It was still useful to keep the first life Black Sovereign alive. The life faction could help him attract attention. It wasn't good to kill him early. Of course, he might not be able to kill the first life Black Sovereign if he continued cursing. Hanju put away the Book of Misfortune and started the simulation trial. 49 years later, Hanju ended the simulation trial and called Tao Comprehension Sword into the Taoist temple. Tao Comprehension Sword sighed as she walked into the Taoist temple again. Everything was still the same, but her heart was no longer the same. What would have happened if she didn't go out everywhere? Tao Comprehension Sword didn't dare to think about it. Compared to the past, the greatest change was the distance between her and Hanju. In the past, she had little knowledge and didn't have so much reverence. Now that she had been in the mortal world, she developed reverence and couldn't talk to Hanju like before. Tao Comprehension Sword knelt down respectfully. Hanju said, "Have you made up your mind?" It wasn't difficult to guess Tao Comprehension Sword's intentions. She probably knew why Li Yao, Morongqi, and the others had disappeared. Tao Comprehension Sword looked up and said, "I'm ready. Master, please fulfill my wish." Hanju didn't say anything else. He directly destroyed her body and placed her soul into the primordial world. Before Tao Comprehension Sword could react, she discovered that her surroundings had changed. Her body was gone. What's going on? Why does Master want to kill me? Tao Comprehension Sword was filled with despair and disbelief. She listened to the Black Hell Chicken and prepared to offer herself, but she actually angered Hanju. Forget it. So be it if she died. Tao Comprehension Sword closed her eyes and prepared to welcome her fate. Anyway, her life was given to her by him. Hanju didn't know what Tao Comprehension Sword was thinking. He chose one of the Fiend Celestial Qi and helped her fuse with it. Then he came to the second Tao field and let Yangdu out. Yangdu landed in front of the Taoist temple, as if a lifetime had passed. He was already an acquaintance of the second Tao field, so Hanju didn't inform Morongqi to fetch him. However, Morongqi sensed Yangdu's aura and took the initiative to come. Congratulations on finally becoming a chaotic fiend celestial. Morongqi patted Yangdu's shoulder and smiled, looking as if he thought highly of him. Yangdu was very excited. He turned around and bowed to the Taoist temple before leaving with Morongqi. This was his first time becoming a chaotic fiend celestial. He still had many things to ask Morongqi. The latter told him everything he knew and was very patient, making his admiration for him grow. No wonder Han Ju chose Morongqi to be the leader of the Fiend Celestial Army. His bearing was indeed impressive. Han Ju didn't leave the second Dao field immediately, but looked at the Earth Immortal world. He suddenly discovered that Run Gang and Yin Hongshan were no longer in the Earth Immortal world, or even the Heavenly Dao. He counted with his fingers. The two of them had followed the reincarnation space into the chaos tens of thousands of years ago, and had never returned. Han Ju didn't care. He had chosen the Fiend Celestial candidates because of a sense of danger. Now that he had become stronger, he was no longer in a hurry to expand the Fiend Celestial army. Being unable to become a chaotic Fiend Celestial was only a pity for Run Gang and Yin Hongshan. Han Ju could replace them. There was no lack of replacements in the hidden sect. What are you looking at? Li Yao asked curiously. Han Ju came back to his senses and smiled. Nothing. Li Yao suddenly pressed his hand down and said softly, "Don't be in a hurry to leave." Han Ju asked, "What is it?" Li Yao blushed. "I need your help to increase my cultivation." Han Ju remained silent. Seeing that he did not object, Li Yao immediately started taking action. The Taoist temple was immersed in love. Unless one was the great Tao Supreme, they could not be spied on. Time passed. Another 100 years passed. Han Ju slowly opened his eyes. After messing with Li Yao for 20 years, he returned to continue cultivating. 10,000 years had passed, but his cultivation level had not increased much, making him quite regretful. The cultivation difficulty increased again after he had reached the mid-stage Great Tao Primordial Chaos Realm. Han Ju took out the heaven-opening axe. It had been successfully upgraded. A terrifying killing intent erupted, fluttering Han Ju's long hair. It shocked him so much that he immediately suppressed this killing intent, afraid that he would accidentally injure the hidden sect disciples. So powerful. Compared to before, it was like the Dharma treasure couldn't be compared to its past self at all. In his opinion, the previous heaven-opening axe was not even a chaotic supreme treasure. It was just hard and heavy enough. The current heaven-opening axe made him, a great Tao sage, feel heavy. The killing intent it contained was extremely shocking. Even without using the primordial divine rage, he was confident that he could kill Hatred Concubine with just a swing of this. Han Ju checked the heaven-opening axe's information. Heaven-opening axe. Ultimate Tao treasure. One of the birth Dharma treasures of the chaotic Fiend Celestial Pangu. Number 1 killing weapon. It has the power to devour the providence of the chaotic Fiend Celestials, and can split the world. Ultimate Tao treasure. Number 1 killing weapon. How arrogant. Han Ju put away the heaven-opening axe and entered the simulation trial. He wanted to test its power right away. In the dark forbidden zone, the light formed by the chaotic heavenly road split the darkness into two. High above, a majestic palace floated. In the hall, Pan Xian was meditating. Usually, when he had nothing to do, he liked to cultivate in the chaos and protect the chaotic heavenly road. He suddenly opened his eyes and took out the heaven-opening axe. The heaven-opening axe in his hand petrified at a speed visible to the naked eye, causing cracks to appear. Shocked, Pan Xian hurriedly used his dermic powers to repair it, but to no avail. Boom! The heaven-opening axe turned to dust and dissipated in front of him. How can this be? Pan Xian was dumbfounded. This was a supreme treasure passed down to him by giant god Pangu. Back then, he had relied on this treasure and the chaotic green lotus to kill his way in and out of a group of great Tao sages. He had been as impressive as he could be. How could such a supreme treasure turn to dust? Pan Xian pinched his fingers to deduce. He couldn't deduce where the heaven-opening axe was, or why it was shattered. Pan Xian was depressed. His Tao heart also cracked. At this moment, Emperor Zhao's voice came from outside the Taoist temple. Fellow Taoist Pan, recently, a force has appeared near the chaotic heavenly road. Pan Xian suddenly stood up. His terrifying aura directly shattered his Tao field. Wisps of flames wrapped around his body. Outside the hall, Emperor Zhao was shocked and subconsciously retreated. Seeing the murderous Pan Xian, he became even more nervous. He suddenly recalled the scene when Pan Xian killed his way back to the heavenly Tao. Had this fellow gone mad? Very good. Life, right? I'll go meet them now. Pan Xian shouted in a low voice. His voice was like thunder. With that said, he disappeared, leaving Emperor Shao bewildered. Chapter 757, What is Invincibility? Chapter 757, What is Invincibility? Hanju opened his eyes after the 100 simulation trials ended. Damn it! How satisfying! With the primordial divine rage, and the ultimate Tao treasure, the heaven-opening axe, he was simply unstoppable. Hanju challenged everyone in the simulation trial alone. Even the powerful foolish sword sage could not withstand a single blow from him. Especially when he fused with the power of 849 fiend celestials, and used the heaven-opening axe to execute the primordial divine rage. He was simply invincible. Hanju was arrogant now. He even felt that he could fight against a great Tao Supreme. Please keep reading on Wuxia World. You know, he had to calm down. If this continued, his Tao heart would be unstable. Hanju entered the simulation trial again, and challenged 100 foolish sword sages alone. An hour later he opened his eyes. This time he calmed down. He had yet to truly become invincible among his peers. In his opinion, true invincibility in the same realm was that no matter how many enemies came, he could easily kill them. The number of enemies was not the factor that affected invincibility. He wouldn't be invincible if he couldn't defeat all enemies at the same level. Hanju started to check his emails to divert his attention. Your disciple Tao Sovereign was attacked by a mysterious Tao Devil. X8900002324. Your disciple Zhao Xianyuan was attacked by a mysterious Tao Devil. X6983102283. Your good friend Jiang Yi was attacked by a mysterious Tao Devil. X6990432221. Your enemy, the Curse Fiend Celestial, was attacked by your good friend Divine Lord Peacock, and was severely injured. Your son Han Tua was attacked by a mysterious mighty figure, and was severely injured. Your son Han Tua has comprehended a great Tao mystical power. His cultivation has increased greatly. Your grand disciple Chu Shuren established the great Tao of creation Buddha, and obtained the primordial chaos Tao fruit. His providence has increased greatly. Your good friend Divine Robe Taoist was attacked by a mysterious mighty figure. Your disciple Yang Tiandong received a lecture from your disciple Su Qi. His cultivation has increased greatly. He calmed down after seeing the emails. The three useless things had been beaten for hundreds of thousands of years. Most importantly, they had yet to successfully attain the Tao. It was unknown what they wanted. Chu Shuren even overtook them, and became a sage. However, how could he create a great Tao? It was the great Tao of Buddha. Could Jie not sense it? Or was Jie not the great Tao of Buddha? Hanju was interested in Chu Shuren. He was the first existence in his sect to create a great Tao. He was really impressive. He had always felt that Chu Shuren's potential was very high. It was not the potential of his body, but a form of comprehension. Cultivation was not difficult for Chu Shuren at all, so he despised it. Will my disciples have the highest achievements in the future? Hanju thought silently. When he thought of how Chu Shuren had attained the great Tao, and was persuading people to give up cultivating. If this kid was invincible, even his grandmaster might be persuaded to give up cultivating. Hanju was terrified just thinking about it. No, he couldn't let Chu Shuren catch up. There was something wrong with this kid's mind. Hanju was only thinking, no matter how high Chu Shuren's potential was, how could he compare to him, a primordial fiend celestial? He continued reading the emails. It became more and more exciting. The heavenly court seemed to have been very active recently. Even Zhou Fan was fighting everywhere. Just as Hanju was watching with relish, Heavenly Venerate Xian Du's voice sounded. Fellow Taoist Han, please come to the Universal Hall. Coincidentally, Hanju was resting and reading the emails, so he jumped to the 33rd heaven and entered the Universal Hall. He entered directly. The Tao field array formation was useless in front of him. Heavenly Venerate Xian Du was already used to his rudeness, and did not feel that it was inappropriate. Soon the other sages arrived. South Extreme Heavenly Venerate Sect Master Tianju, Heavenly Venerate Wufa, Qiu Shilai Fong Liang, Huang Zuantian Jin Shen Su Dudao Su Qi Li Taigu, Primordial Chaos Buddha, Zhang Guxing and Long Hao. Long Hao was very excited to see Hanju, and immediately knelt down. Primordial Chaos Buddha was very restrained. He was still a spy, and could not let Qiu Shilai notice anything. Zhang Guxing felt as if a lifetime had passed when he saw Hanju. He already knew why he could attain the Tao. Indeed, the divine palace had developed extremely well, and was very attractive to geniuses. It could be considered one of the top 10 existences in the immortal world. Before attaining the Tao, he was also at the top of the Heavenly Tao Providence Board. But the sage position was not so easy to obtain. How many pseudo-sages were watching? Heavenly Venerate Wufa told him directly that he chose him, because he valued the karma between him and Hanju. The future Heavenly Tao would be the Heavenly Tao with the surname Han. Heavenly Venerate Wufa needed Zhang Guxing to join forces with him, and climb up under Hanju, fighting for more power and Hanju's trust. There would be power struggles, even in the Grand Unification. This was vividly displayed in the Mortal Empire. Hanju asked Long Hao to stand up and nodded at Zhang Guxing as a greeting. As for the Primordial Chaos Buddha, he pretended not to know him. Primordial Chaos Buddha immediately understood. Master wants me to continue pretending. After the sages sat down, Heavenly Venerate Xian Du's expression turned solemn as he said, "The divine robe Taoist isn't dead. He has reappeared. Not long ago, he defeated the great Tao divine spirit who wanted to occupy his territory. This battle has already alarmed the chaos." Hearing this, all the sages looked at Hanju. He said indifferently, "Don't worry. The divine robe Taoist won't attack the Heavenly Tao again." The sages heaved a sigh of relief. Heavenly Venerate Wufa smiled. "I wouldn't dare either if I were him." Qiu Shilai, Sect Master Tianju, and Fong Liang understood the truth and nodded. Heavenly Venerate Xian Du's expression softened. Li Taiga suddenly asked, "Senior Han, can't great Tao sages be killed?" He asked the question that the other sages wanted to ask. The great Tao realm was too mysterious to them. There were no legends even in the Heavenly Tao. Hanju said, "The great Tao sages are indeed considered undying and indestructible. They can't be killed unless your dermic powers surpass theirs. However, are there any realms above the great Tao realm?" The sages subconsciously shook their heads. They couldn't imagine how he was stronger than the great Tao sage. Hanju stopped talking. Heavenly Venerate Xian Du took over. "Since the divine robe Taoist won't threaten the Heavenly Tao anymore, let's talk about something else. This is what the Heavenly Court's evil Heavenly Emperor told me. He said that the Heavenly Court has discovered a mystic realm, where Dharma treasures are born all the time. There are all sorts of treasures of all grades, but they are also accompanied by many powerful artifact spirits. Blessing and misfortune coexist. The Heavenly Court is willing to share them with the Heavenly Tao." The South Extreme Heavenly Venerate immediately said, "Go. We all know the relationship between the evil Heavenly Emperor and fellow Taoist Han. Besides, the Heavenly Tao indeed lacks Dharma treasures. The attainments of the refiners can't keep up with the speed of cultivators breaking through. The Dharma treasures of the Heavenly Tao are still too weak compared to the chaos." The other sages nodded in agreement. This matter was quickly settled without any obstruction. Heavenly Venerate Xian Du continued, "Recently, a human emperor has appeared in the Heavenly Tao. He wants to use the power of humans to unite the Heavenly Tao. It seems to be harming the Heavenly Tao's peace. What do you think?" Su Dudao said, "Just suppress them. The hearts of people are complicated. Although I'm a human, I know too well how sinister the hearts of people are. The Heavenly Tao has been peaceful for too long. The humans have already forgotten the dignity of sages." Fong Liang frowned. "If we directly suppress them, I'm afraid someone in the human race will use this matter to incite trouble." Primordial Chaos Buddha said, "Lure the Buddhist sect into the human race, and teach them with Buddhist principles." Qiu Shilai glanced at him. This junior was good. He knew how to take advantage of the situation. Chapter 758 Trust. Chapter 758 Trust. The matter of the human race caused an intense discussion among the sages. Perhaps because such chaos had not appeared in the Heavenly Tao for a long time, the sages were rather excited. Hanju didn't care. That human emperor couldn't represent the entire human race. The human race was a heavenly Tao race, but the human emperor was not the protagonist of the heavenly Tao. Hundreds of thousands of years of peace had made mortals forget their reverence. This was understandable. Hanju was bored. After knowing that there was nothing serious, he stood up and left. The sages did not stop him, and heaved a sigh of relief. With Hanju around, they would always be worried about his position. Hanju stood up and left, indicating that he didn't care about this at all. Thinking about it, it made sense. What was Hanju's identity? After he left, Jinshin said directly, he went against the heavenly Tao and wants to disturb peace. Kill him directly, and change the human emperor. Please keep reading on Wuxia World. Iuli Taiga said, I suggest we supervise the human emperor temple. After all, the human race is a heavenly Tao race. Without the support of the human emperor temple, how can the human race dare to be so rampant? Feng Liang said, the human race currently lacks standards. The human emperor chose someone with a powerful cultivation level, and not a sage. I know a human genius who has the power to conquer the world, and also has very good potential. The sages spoke one after another, and quickly decided on the outcome. The sages might have turned a blind eye if it was before the previous calamity. However, the heavenly Tao wanted to develop and explore the chaos. If the interior fell into chaos, it would definitely cause the cultivators exploring the chaos to be in confusion. Buzhou Divine Mountain. Hanyu sat under an old tree. The scenery at the top of Buzhou Divine Mountain was very beautiful. Looking along the cliff, the continuous ridge emerged from the clouds like the spine of a dragon. It was vast and majestic. Hanyu, who was cultivating under the tree, did not move. His white clothes were spotless and he looked peaceful. At this moment, a figure appeared in front of him. It was Long Hao. He was not the main body, but a phantom. Hanyu opened his eyes and looked at him. What is it? Long Hao smiled. You're really cold. Can't I visit you for no reason? I'm a sage now. Aren't you going to bow? Hanyu rolled his eyes and ignored him. Long Hao didn't dare to be angry when he saw his face, so he naturally did not mind. He smiled and said, now that you are the great ancestor of the human race, are you willing to stand up and lead them? Hanyu frowned. Did the current human emperor cause trouble? Clearly he had heard of the human race. Long Hao said, in the human race ceremony hundreds of years ago, the human emperor declared that humans are above sages, and that the race should unite the heavens. Don't you think this is dangerous? It would be fine if a mortal had said that. There were many arrogant people in the world, but as the human emperor, that was not appropriate. Hanyu frowned even more and shook his head. Forget it. I have no intention of entering the world. Find someone else. He paused and continued, thank you. Long Hao had already attained the Tao, but he still cared about him. He was touched. There were many experts and geniuses in the dragon race. Long Hao was not invincible. Long Hao looked at Hanyu deeply and said, you're not bad. Perhaps in the future, you will surpass the imagination of the world. With that he vanished. Hanyu was confused and did not understand what he meant. Since he couldn't figure it out, he stopped thinking about it. Hanyu closed his eyes and continued cultivating. He had already let go of his emotions and desires, let go of the mortal world. He only wanted to cultivate quietly and alone in the long years. It wasn't a bad thing to enjoy loneliness. He only needed to accompany his Tao. Another 10,000 years passed. Hanju opened his eyes and looked at the immortal world. The human race was still around. Under the schemes of the sages, a new human emperor overthrew the previous human emperor thousands of years ago. Now he led the human race to develop in peace. Peace returned to the immortal world. This matter had already been forgotten by all the living beings in the heavenly Tao. Something new would happen every year. Who would remember what happened in the past? The current heavenly Tao was still in the era of geniuses. Most of the people recorded in the history books were geniuses. Geniuses had a new standard. Other than potential, they also had to have heavenly Tao merit. Heavenly Tao merit was needed to contribute to all living beings, and the heavenly Tao. The first batch of geniuses were already the masters of the various small worlds. They had endless merit, and Taoists also traveled the heavens. Tao techniques were common among all living beings, and led countless cultivators. Hanju's gaze landed on the reroll world. Because of him, the reroll world had been well taken care of. It had always been second only to the loose heaven realm in all these years in the heavens. The loose heaven realm also took good care of the reroll world. After all, it was not a secret that Great Loose Heaven had joined the hidden sect. With the huge providence of the reroll world, the white-robed Buddha was already a pseudo-sage, but he had always been an early-stage pseudo-sage. It was very difficult for him to increase his cultivation. It was already unbelievable in the past that he had become a pseudo-sage in hundreds of thousands of years. Therefore, Hanju had no intention of promoting him and let him slowly settle down. After observing the heavenly Tao, Hanju started to check his emails. Your good friend Di Jiang was attacked by your son Han Tua. Your disciple Zhou Fan was attacked by your good friend Empress Hutu. Your good friend Evil Heavenly Emperor was attacked by your good friend Zhu Jiuyin. Your good friend Pan Xian was attacked by a mighty figure and was severely injured. Your good friend Divine Lord Peacock has comprehended a karma mystical power. His cultivation has increased greatly. Your grand disciple Chu Shuren established the Buddhist world, and his cultivation increased greatly. Your Tao companion Xing Hongxian has comprehended a great Tao mystical power because of your son. Your good friend Li Daokong has received guidance from your good friend ancestor Shitian. His cultivation has increased greatly. The heavenly court and the great Tao tower were fighting with the 12 ancestral magi. Hanju noticed that no one on both sides had died. It seemed that it was not to the point of no return. He couldn't be bothered to mediate. If something happened, the unlucky ones would be the 12 ancestral magi. Not all good friends were true friends. Hanju looked down. Xing Hongxian really treated the fetus in her womb as a cultivation device. She could even comprehend a great Tao mystical power. This is my son's mystical power. Hanju noticed Li Daokong and ancestor Shitian next. The two of them had established a relationship in the life faction. Why wasn't Shi Dudao helped by ancestor Shitian? Thinking of Shi Dudao, Hanju suddenly felt that he had neglected him. After reading the emails, Hanju sent a dream to Shi Dudao in the image of the dark forbidden lord. The dream was a dark starry sky. The two of them stood beside a sun. Shi Dudao opened his eyes and was pleasantly surprised to see a mysterious figure that was as black as a shadow. Greetings, dark forbidden lord. Shi Dudao immediately knelt down on one knee and cupped his fists. Hanju said, It's been hard on you all these years. Shi Dudao suppressed his excitement and said, No, I have to thank you. Hanju said, It looks dangerous, but it might also be an opportunity. Use it well. I'll make a move when it's time. If I don't appear, it means that the time isn't right. Shi Dudao nodded. He understood what he meant. Just as he had guessed, life was created by the dark forbidden lord. All of this was just a facade. Thinking of this, Shi Dudao respected the dark forbidden lord even more. The fact that the dark forbidden lord could visit him in his dreams and tell him the truth meant that he trusted him. He would do anything for the dark forbidden lord. Chapter 759 Unable to Break Through. Chapter 759 Unable to Break Through. Hanju comforted Shi Dudao. He was relieved seeing that he had no complaints. Hanju sighed after the dream ended. Shi Dudao is not bad. I can focus on nurturing him in the future. He has patience and determination. His future is limitless. He would observe for hundreds of thousands of years first. In any case, Shi Dudao and Li Daokong had both become life. Nothing would happen for the time being. Currently life was still fearless. It seemed that no force could restrain them. The great Tao divine spirits did not move either. Hanju came to the second Tao field and released Tao comprehension sword. Their appearance alerted Li Yao. Li Yao opened her eyes and saw Tao comprehension sword. She immediately looked happy. Tao comprehension sword slowly opened her eyes. Seeing Hanju and Li Yao, she couldn't help but be in a daze. Please keep reading on Wuxia World. During the fusion process, Hanju was busy cultivating and ignored her, causing her to be in a deep sleep. Because it was too painful, she could only numb herself with sleep. She was stunned. Then, she felt that the boundless power coming from her body was far greater than before. She was not dead. She had been reborn. Congratulations on becoming a chaotic fiend celestial. Li Yao walked in front of her and smiled as she held her hand. They had known each other for hundreds of thousands of years and had established the Holy Mother sect together. Their relationship was naturally good. Dao Comprehension Sword asked in surprise. Why did I become a chaotic fiend celestial? Hanju said. Because I helped, of course. Didn't you come to me to become stronger? Dao Comprehension Sword's beautiful face instantly turned red. Hanju added, stay here from now on. With that, he returned to the main Dao field. Once he left, Dao Comprehension Sword heaved a sigh of relief and regained her nature. She looked at Li Yao and asked curiously, how can Master transform people into chaotic fiend celestials? Chaotic fiend celestials are the top potential in the legends of the chaos. Li Yao introduced the situation of the second Dao field. She was shocked to learn that other than her, others had also become chaotic fiend celestials. How many secrets was Master hiding? She covered the second Dao field with her divine sense and felt powerful auras that were not inferior to hers. This power was much stronger than the hidden sect. After releasing Dao Comprehension Sword, Hanju entered cultivation again. Cultivation was endless. In the eyes of sages, time was nothing. Longevity was sometimes boring. Year after year passed. Tens of thousands of years later, detected that you are 700,000 years old, and your life has taken another step forward. You have the following choices. 1. Exit seclusion immediately and spread the name of the primordial fiend celestial, stirring up the great Dao immeasurable calamity. You can obtain a great Dao fragment, a creation spirit stone, and a heavenly Dao spirit stone. 2. Cultivate in a low-profile manner and stay away from trouble. You can obtain a great Dao fragment, a creation spirit stone, and a supreme treasure. It was the same as the 600,000 years old option. Hanju directly chose the second option. Congratulations on obtaining the chaotic supreme treasure, 3,000 heavenly dragon ribbon. 3,000 heavenly dragon ribbon. Defensive chaotic supreme treasure. It is formed by the providence of 3,000 chaotic heavenly dragons. It contains extremely strong defense and can block great Dao attacks. It can isolate the damage of karma and negative karma. Great! Another defensive supreme treasure. With 4 defensive supreme treasures, even a great Dao Supreme could not insta-kill him. Right? Hanju asked in his mind. 500 billion years of lifespan will be deducted. Do you want to continue? Continue. Yes, you can't be insta-killed. The corners of Hanju's mouth curled up. Then, he took out the 3,000 heavenly dragon ribbon and started refining it. The refinement was successful after 80 years. The 3,000 dragons automatically wrapped around Hanju. They followed his waist and wrapped around his arms. The 2 ends landed behind him. Golden light burst out and dragon shadows appeared behind him. The dragons twisted, and their divine might was vast. Hanju sized himself up. He had become more impressive again. Hanju immediately entered the simulation trial and challenged the foolish sword sage. He stood still and let the foolish sword sage hit him. The foolish sword sage still couldn't break through his defense even after an hour. Hanju took out the heaven-opening axe and insta-killed him. Boring. Hanju opened his eyes and sighed. None of them could fight. Then, he fused the creation spirit stone with the scarlet clear fiend celestial. In a vast hall, the evil heavenly emperor stood in front of a huge cauldron. Han Tua sat in the boiling medicine inside the cauldron. He was frowning and his expression was ugly. The evil heavenly emperor's eyes were filled with worry. At this moment, the great Dao concealment fiend celestial's voice sounded. Don't worry. I've already removed the spatial power in his body. The evil heavenly emperor grumbled. I've already said that we're not Dijong's match, let alone the other ancestral magi. Especially that time ancestral magus, Zhu Jiuyin, who's invincible in the freedom realm. The great Dao concealment fiend celestial was silent. After a long while, he said faintly, I didn't expect Dijiang to be so powerful. It seems that Panga's providence is protecting them. The evil heavenly emperor snorted. Then, do you still want us to continue fighting the 12 ancestral magi? My heavenly court will be destroyed if we continue. The great Tao concealment fiend celestial snorted. What a disappointment. Forget it. I'll personally deal with Di Jiang when the time comes. The evil heavenly emperor immediately smiled. Thank you for your understanding, senior. The great Tao concealment fiend celestial did not appear. It was unknown what his expression was. After a while, the great Tao concealment fiend celestial suddenly asked, how has Hanju been recently? Why isn't there any movement from him? The current heavenly Tao had already established itself in the chaos. Its development was very ferocious, and would surpass the deity realm of the ruins of N sooner or later. He's most likely cultivating in seclusion. I know him too well. The evil heavenly emperor smiled. The great Tao concealment fiend celestial asked curiously, why is he cultivating so hard? He doesn't seem to have any goals. The evil heavenly emperor said, cultivation is the goal. The great Tao concealment fiend celestial said in a low voice, after some time, accompany me to the heavenly Tao to visit him. The evil heavenly emperor frowned. What do you want? Don't think about using any opportunities to attract his help. He's most afraid of trouble. The great Tao concealment fiend celestial said helplessly. Why do you keep speaking up for him? I treat you well. Why don't you think about me? We're like father and son. Why fuss about this? Silence returned to the hall. The evil heavenly emperor's gaze landed on Han Tuar again. In the darkness, a coffin moved quickly. A figure sat on the coffin. It was Huang Zuentian. Huang Zuentian looked ahead and asked softly, where are we going? A voice came from his body, low and hoarse, ancient desolate. Why? Help us activate the primordial chaos tablet. It is a supreme treasure born at the beginning of the chaos. It is not inferior to Panga's heaven-opening axe. With it, you will truly rise. Huang Zuentian raised his eyebrows. He was naturally familiar with the heaven-opening axe. That was a supreme treasure that Pan Xian was most proud of. Back then, Pan Xian had relied on the heaven-opening axe to break through the deity realm of the ruins of End. Even now, his achievements were still very terrifying. Huang Zuentian asked, isn't the ancient desolate dangerous? Primordial Origin replied, I've calculated. The ancient desolate is relatively safe during this period of time. Those terrifying existences have already left. After arriving there, look away when you see tombstones and mirages. Don't provoke them. Chapter 760 Great Ambition. Chapter 760 Great Ambition. Speaking of which, the ancient desolate has been broken through for so long. Why didn't those powerful existences leave? Wasn't the ancient desolate a prison created by the Tao ancestor? Huang Zuentian touched his chin and asked. Because of primordial origin, he knew many of the chaos secrets. Primordial Origin replied. The Tao ancestor was indeed powerful back then. He was even suspected by many mighty figures in the chaos to be Panga's reincarnation. The ancient desolate was once formed by the original world of the heavenly Tao. Although it has already severed the providence of the heavenly Tao, its foundation is still there. In addition, it has suppressed many mighty figures. Over time, the ancient desolate has already become an independent world. It developed its own great Tao. Not to mention those ruthless existences, it can be considered an excellent place for cultivation. Huang Zuentian asked, what is the strongest existence in the ancient desolate? Primordial Origin was silent. Huang Zuentian waited for a moment and asked again, why aren't you saying anything? I can't say his name and break the taboo. Kid, remember, the chaos is not as simple as you think. All living beings are in the illusion. There are some things that you can't ask or remember. Primordial Origin's tone was filled with emotions, as if he had fallen into endless memories. Huang Zuentian was even more curious, but he did not ask, afraid that it would cause trouble. The longer he spent with Primordial Origin, the more curious he became about the chaos. Please keep reading on Wuxia World. How was such a vast chaos born? What was before the chaos? Was the Great Tao Realm really the end of cultivation? I can't escape the chaos by cultivating? Huang Zuentian felt that many secrets were worth exploring other than pursuing strength in the path of cultivation. Time passed. 80,000 years passed. Hanju opened his eyes and smiled in satisfaction. He cultivated for 80,000 years without anyone disturbing him. This time, when he woke up and looked back, his cultivation level had increased greatly. Hanju suddenly had a bold thought. He wanted to enter seclusion and break through in one go. However, this was not good. If too much time passed, the heavenly Tao would probably change drastically and even escape his control. Perhaps he could rely on his absolute strength to suppress it again, but it would still be troublesome. Hanju first came to the second Tao field and released Scarlet Clear Fiend Celestial to let Morong Qi receive him. After the two Fiend Celestials left, Hanju looked at Li Yao and Tao Comprehension Sword. The two women meditated side by side. They had their own styles and were devastatingly beautiful. Hanju paid attention to their cultivation. The great Tao he had fused with Tao Comprehension Sword was the great Tao of Sword. He could already feel a sword qi nurturing in her. This sword qi was very strong. Although it had yet to attain the Tao, it was already not inferior to a sage who had just attained the Tao. While Hanju was sizing them up, they were also looking at him. Wearing 4 chaotic supreme treasures, Hanju's temperament stunned them. They had never seen such a handsome person. Even though he was already the person they were most familiar with, his bearing still fascinated them. Li Yao said, "Don't go yet." Hanju asked, "What is it?" Li Yao glanced at Tao Comprehension Sword and said, "We have questions about cultivation that we want to ask you." Hanju nodded and sat down. The three of them began to discuss the Tao. 50 years passed quickly. Hanju returned to the main Tao field and smiled. "These two girls are not bad. They didn't disappoint me." Hanju began to look forward to Li Yao and Tao Comprehension Sword's future. Then he began to check his emails. After 80,000 years, the number of emails had already reached a terrifying number. However, as a great Tao sage, Hanju easily read all of them. Recently, Chu Shuren had been quite active. After this fellow attained the Tao, his cultivation level increased very quickly, and he had already reached the mid-stage Primordial Chaos Zenith Heaven Golden Immortal Realm. Hanju decided to visit Chu Shuren in his dreams. The dream was under the Fusang tree, filled with nostalgia. Chu Shuren opened his eyes and was indeed stunned by what he saw. To Hanju, his departure might have been a few days ago, but to him, the experiences contained in hundreds of thousands of years were endless. Seeing Hanju, Chu Shuren immediately woke up and knelt down. He wore the Time Tao robe and the Grand Primordium Divine Crown on his head, the Chaotic Diamond Bracelet in his hand, and the 3,000 Heavenly Dragon ribbon wrapped around his body. Hanju's image and temperament had reached the extreme. The 3,000 dragon shadows swayed behind him, causing Chu Shuren to be filled with reverence. No wonder he could kill a great Tao Divine Spirit. This temperament was even more powerful than the great Tao Divine Spirit in Chu Shuren's imagination. Hanju smiled and asked, "Not bad. You actually created your own great Tao, and even created a world. You're indeed my most highly regarded disciple." Hearing this, Chu Shuren immediately became excited. Usually, he was extremely calm when facing anyone. Only when facing Hanju would he always be like a junior. "It's all thanks to Grandmaster that I can be where I am today," said Chu Shuren, suppressing his surprise. Hanju had said this to him before. He was not touched for long. After calming down, he felt that Hanju was coaxing him. From the looks of it, all of this was within Hanju's expectations. He had heard that a great Tao sage could see through one's future and fate. Hanju asked, "Tell me, how's the development of the Buddhist world?" "Although I can see it, it must be even more exciting coming from you." Chu Shuren nodded. Then, he felt an irresistible force lifting him up. He began to talk about his experience creating the Buddhist world. He spoke for several hours. The development of the Buddhist world was not bad. It was not purely an independent world. It was more like a sect that established connections with many worlds. The Buddhist world's disciples were all cultivators who wandered in the chaos. After learning the Buddhist Dharma, they began to wander the chaos and expiate the suffering of living beings. Chu Shuren spoke very proudly. He felt that his Buddhist world was more Buddhist-like than the Heavenly Tao Buddhist sect. A true Buddha should cultivate to save all living beings from suffering, not fight for power. Hanju smiled. Not bad. I'm very satisfied that you didn't forget your original intention. However, the chaos is still the chaos. Sometimes, don't trust others too much. If you encounter trouble, remember to contact the hidden sect. Although you created your own Buddhist world, you didn't leave the hidden sect, right? Chu Shuren was shocked. Grand disciple will always be a disciple of the hidden sect. Hanju smiled and nodded. Then he began to preach in his dream. It just so happened that Chu Shuren was in seclusion and did not need to end the dream immediately. 10 years later, Hanju opened his eyes. He suddenly felt that Chu Shuren might really have the best potential. He discovered that after Chu Shuren listened to the Tao seriously, his understanding of the great Tao of extreme origin was very deep. If there was a path of cultivation for the great Tao of extreme origin, Chu Shuren would already be ahead of many disciples. There was no lack of people whose cultivation level surpassed his. For example, Zhou Fan's understanding of the great Tao of extreme origin was inferior to Chu Shuren's. Most importantly, Chu Shuren had a kind heart. Most of Hanju's disciples cultivated to become stronger. Very few disciples had ambitions toward others, including Hanju himself. Hanju smiled and stopped thinking about it. He was about to cultivate when he suddenly felt something and looked up at the chaotic heavenly road. Great Tao Sage. Chapter 761 Primordial 10 Sages. Chapter 761 Primordial 10 Sages. Outside the heavenly Tao, on the chaotic heavenly road, a figure hung in the darkness and looked down. This person wore a green Taoist robe and held a horsetail whisk. His long beard fluttered, and he exuded an immortal aura. Why have you come to my heavenly Tao? Hanju's voice suddenly floated into his ears. Although this great Tao sage stood on the chaotic heavenly road, his aura was void and his figure was isolated. The heavenly Tao sages did not sense his existence. Such concealment probably did not entail good intentions. Hanju had already detected his information. Cave Master Clear Wind. Early stage Great Tao Primordial Chaos Realm. Connate Life Form. Disciple of the Tao Ancestor. Immeasurable Emperor Cave Master Clear Wind? What a strange name. Cave Master Clear Wind smiled and replied, I'm only a Taoist wandering in the chaos. This time, I'm here to see how the old place is developing. You must be the divine might heavenly sage of the heavenly Tao. Impressive. The heavenly Tao is developing very well in your hands. It can be considered an unprecedented golden age. Hanju asked, You already saw it. What's next? Please keep reading on Wuxia World. A great Tao sage was extremely dangerous to the heavenly Tao. Hanju had to be wary. He would kill him instantly if this fellow dared to develop hatred towards him. Of course, you're really wary. Perhaps this is the reason why the heavenly Tao can develop until now. Cave Master Clearwind sighed. He had the bearing of an expert. Although he kept calling him a fellow Taoist, Hanju felt that this old fellow's tone like he was talking to a junior. In terms of age, Hanju was a junior, but not in terms of cultivation. Cultivation was used to determine seniority in the chaos. Cave Master Clear Wind suddenly asked, What do you think of the Tao Ancestor? Hanju replied, The Tao Ancestor has endless merit towards the heavenly Tao. He is the ancestor of the heavenly Tao cultivators. I naturally respect him. Cave Master Clear Wind has developed hatred towards you. Current hatred points 1 star. Hanju narrowed his eyes. What did he mean? Aren't you the disciple of the Tao Ancestor? You want to betray your master? Hanju almost attacked him when he saw the hatred notification. Fortunately, it was a 1-star hatred. Otherwise, the ashes of Cave Master Clear Wind would have been scattered on the chaotic heavenly road. Looks like the Tao Ancestor's wish has been fulfilled. Cave Master Clear Wind sighed and left. Watching him leave, Hanju still endured it. 1-star hatred points showed that the other party was only unhappy. There was no need to curse or kill. Hanju didn't want to develop a bloodthirsty personality. Hanju frowned after Cave Master Clear Wind's aura completely disappeared. Did this fellow really only come back to take a look? Then why was he staring at the chaotic heavenly road instead of the heavenly Tao? It looked like he was checking something. Most importantly, This fellow did not even dare to leave behind his Dao title. Was he afraid of being cursed? Hanju had no choice but to use the derivation function. I want to know why Cave Master Clear Wind came to the heavenly Dao. 160 billion years of lifespan will be deducted. Do you want to continue? Continue. Hanju entered the illusion. He opened his eyes and appeared in a dark world. The barren land was continuous in all directions. He could only see very short weeds and various flames floating in the air. He couldn't see any living beings. His gaze landed on a stone tablet. This stone tablet was 1,000 feet tall. Its surface was covered in cracks and was very inconspicuous in the vast world. Hanju noticed a few words on the stone tablet, but he couldn't see them clearly. Strange. There were still things that the great Dao sages could not see clearly? There must be a special restriction on the stone tablet. At this moment, figures appeared in front of the stone tablet. There were a total of 9 figures. They were all Taoists, and one of them was none other than Cave Master Clear Wind. The leader was a tall Taoist with a jade staff at his waist that reflected a faint light. The tall Taoist asked, "Why did you gather us?" A vast voice came from the stone tablet. "The heavenly Dao has changed. Fate is unfathomable. I need you to investigate why it has changed." The 9 Taoists looked at each other. One of the Taoists couldn't help but say, "It's just an investigation. Is there a need to ask all of us to go?" The other Taoists nodded. The heavenly Dao was far away. They still had to cultivate. Go. It's best to think of a way to infiltrate the heavenly Dao. This matter might involve the great Dao immeasurable calamity. That mysterious and unknown primordial fiend celestial might be born in the heavenly Dao in the future. If that's the case, you can keep an eye on it immediately. The vast voice weakened as it spoke. The tall Taoist frowned. Their expressions changed when the other Taoists heard about the great Dao immeasurable calamity. The illusion shattered. Hanju opened his eyes. Indeed, they had ill intentions. He asked in his mind, "Have these 9 great Dao sages already infiltrated the heavenly Dao?" The great Dao sages had many methods and did not need him to infiltrate. 200 billion years of lifespan will be deducted. Do you want to continue? Continue. Not for the time being. Hanju asked, "Who was the voice in the stone tablet just now?" 500 billion years of lifespan will be deducted. Do you want to continue? Continue. Beginning deity. Late stage great Dao supreme realm. The first great Dao deity in the chaos. He once fought with the Dao ancestor and was severely injured. He was sealed in the ancient desolate. Even though he was severely injured, he was still at the late-stage Great Dao Supreme Realm. The Dao ancestor was very powerful. Hanju suddenly wondered if the system could derive the Dao ancestor. I want to know where the Dao ancestor is. The other party's karma is too scattered and cannot be accurately deduced. What did this mean? Could it be that the Dao ancestor had transformed into all things, and all things were covered in chaos? Hanju frowned. He had always been afraid of the Dao ancestor. The Dao ancestor always seemed to be able to escape the system's pursuit. Most importantly, why did the Dao ancestor disappear? Who was he hiding from? He couldn't be hiding from Hanju, the primordial fiend celestial, right? Hanju would have died thousands of times if the Dao ancestor was still around and wanted to kill the primordial fiend celestial. Hanju always thought that the Dao ancestor had chosen him as a variable and would definitely see that he was extraordinary. It was very likely because of the system. The original Hanju was nothing special. Transmigrator. When Hanju observed the myriad worlds in the universe, he often saw transmigrators whose souls traveled to other worlds. The so-called transmigrator was just a soul that luckily escaped the order of reincarnation and was swept into an unknown world. Speaking of which, many mighty figures also liked to transmigrate. Hanju couldn't figure it out and stopped thinking about it. Continue cultivating. He had plenty of ways to eliminate them even if the 9 great Dao sages infiltrated the heavenly Dao. If there was no other way, he could only let the dark forbidden lord appear. Outside the 33rd heaven, in the Universal Hall, Heavenly Venerate Xiandu, Sect Master Tianju, Qiu Shilai, Feng Liang, and Zhang Guxing gathered here. Heavenly Venerate Xiandu scanned the 4 sages and said, "Today, I summon the four of you because I have a mission for you. Sect Master Tianju replied, Go ahead. Heavenly Venerate Xian Du said, Recently, there have been rumors in the chaos that the primordial fiend celestial, who is going to usher the great Tao immeasurable calamity, will be born in the heavenly Tao. This is probably a conspiracy. The Buddhist sect, the heavenly Tao sect, the divine palace, and the Jie school are all sects where the geniuses of the heavenly Tao gather. I have also informed Li Xianao. Everyone spread a statement. It's best to push this matter into the chaos. This saying is that the heavenly Tao will give birth to 10 geniuses, who can resist the primordial fiend celestial. They are the primordial 10 sages, chosen by the Tao ancestor. The 4 sages were stunned. Fang Liang's eyes widened. Really, his soul had transmigrated to the primordial era many times. Why had he never heard of the primordial 10 sages? Chapter 762 Ultimate Supreme Treasure. 10 million years. Chapter 762 Ultimate Supreme Treasure. 10 million years. After Fang Liang asked, Sect Master Tianju, Qiu Shilai, and Zhang Guxing also stared at Heavenly Venerate Xian Du excitedly. The great Tao immeasurable calamity was a shadow that enveloped the entire chaos. All the cultivators knew that it was coming, but they didn't know when it would arrive, or what situation it would arrive in. If the heavenly Tao had the hope of breaking through the great Tao immeasurable calamity, wouldn't it become the center of the entire chaos after it ended? Heavenly Venerate Xian Du said expressionlessly, Of course it's fake, but what's fake can also become true. I just don't want anyone to press the primordial fiend celestial on the heavenly Tao and cause it to be attacked. We can't rely on fellow Taoist Han for everything. Other than strength, there are many other ways to resolve the calamity. The 4 sages were silent. Fang Liang cursed silently. I knew it. What primordial 10 sages? It only sounded nice. Please keep reading on Wuxia World. EU Heavenly Venerate Xian Du continued. I'll tell you the legend of the primordial 10 sages now. Remember it well. The 4 sages had strange expressions. You even made up a legend? Heavenly Venerate Xian Du did not seem to see their expressions and continued speaking. Less than 5,000 years later, the legend of the primordial 10 sages spread in the heavenly Tao, and then from the chaotic heavenly road to the chaos. Legend had it that the primordial 10 sages were the 10 mighty figures, including the Tao ancestor. They had subdued the reincarnated Luo, Ho of the primordial fiend celestial, and disappeared without a trace. Before the great Tao immeasurable calamity, they would reincarnate and cultivate the great Tao again. They would be the saviors killing the primordial fiend celestial. This legend excited countless geniuses. The geniuses all thought highly of themselves. Tracing their talent would create a fantasy. Could they be the reincarnation of a mighty figure? The heavenly Tao had already formed the momentum to find the primordial 10 sages, but it still required a long time to spread to every corner of the chaos. More than 10,000 years later, Hanju was still cultivating. Detected that you are 800,000 years old. You have the following choices. 1. Exit seclusion immediately. Raise the reputation of the primordial fiend celestial, and stir up the great Tao immeasurable calamity. You can obtain a chance to upgrade the Tao field. 2. Cultivate in a low-profile manner, and stay away from trouble. You can obtain a great Tao fragment, a creation spirit stone, and a supreme treasure. 800,000 years old. How old? Hanju ignored the system's trap, and silently chose the second option. Congratulations on obtaining the ultimate supreme treasure. Mystical Destiny Book. Mystical Destiny Book. Ultimate Supreme Treasure. A supreme treasure formed by seizing a supreme creation. It can tamper with the past and future of others, and directly change everything. It is not restricted or spied on by any rules, but it cannot erase the existence of the great Tao and its rules. Every time you use this treasure, your lifespan will be deducted at an equivalent price. This treasure will be unusable for a period of time. As the number of times it is used increases, its cooldown time will increase exponentially. Special hint: this treasure cannot be upgraded and cannot recognize a master. What the heck? Hanju blinked. Ultimate supreme treasure. Did he obtain a golden legendary treasure? Hanju carefully checked the treasure's introduction, and his breathing quickened. He could directly change everything. Too arrogant. Hanju took out the mystical destiny book, and a white cover book appeared in his hand. It was smooth and cold. Opening the book, it was filled with blank pages. It was ordinary. This thing is not easy to use. I don't know how much lifespan I have to use. Don't suck me dry. Hanju frowned. The system can help you use this treasure. This treasure is one of the strongest supreme treasures contained in the system. You have to be extremely cautious when using it. Hanju heaved a sigh of relief upon seeing this line of words. One of the strongest supreme treasures? Changing everything directly was invincible in Hanju's opinion. What else could compete with it? Hanju carefully probed. How much lifespan will be deducted if I want to become the strongest person in the entire chaos? Warning. You cannot withstand the immense creation brought by this change. You will immediately die. That's not right. How can I die if I'm already the strongest? You will die before you become the strongest in the process of changing. Hanju frowned. So it was useless. It was even more useless than the Book of Misfortune. According to the system's explanation, Hanju might already be the strongest if he wanted to become the strongest. Hanju suddenly thought of how the beginning deity had sent the great Tao sages to the heavenly Tao to investigate the primordial fiend celestial. Can I use a fake identity so that all living beings will never think that I am a primordial fiend celestial? Hanju's heart beat faster. This was a good idea. He had to ensure his safety first before considering becoming stronger. After all, the primordial fiend celestial was the entire chaos public enemy. I want the living beings of the chaos to think that I'm absolutely harmless. Warning. You cannot withstand the immense creation brought by this change. You will immediately die. I want the chaotic deities to have a favorable impression of me. Warning. You cannot withstand the immense creation brought by this change. You will immediately die. All right. I want all the living beings in the chaos to believe that I'm the reincarnation of a chaotic fiend celestial. The chaotic fiend celestial was already the lowest threshold. The potential Hanju displayed was too terrifying. It was too ridiculous to say that his potential was lower than that of a chaotic fiend celestial. It didn't make sense. Ordinary living beings might not realize this blind spot, but Hanju felt that with the chaotic deity's existence, they would definitely notice this and continue to investigate. In the end, it would speed up the exposure of his primordial fiend celestial identity. Half of your lifespan will be deducted. Do you want to continue? Half. Hanju's eyes widened, and he almost threw the book to the ground. It was indeed not a good thing. However, Hanju still didn't give up. His lifespan would be refreshed as long as he broke through. He had to protect the primordial fiend celestial's secrets first. Hanju gritted his teeth and chose to continue. The mystical destiny book emitted a dazzling light. Hanju felt a terrifying suction force pulling something out of him. It was his lifespan. Hanju came back to his senses after an unknown period of time. Unprecedented exhaustion surged into his heart. A hint of fear appeared in his eyes as he looked at the mystical destiny book again. This thing was too terrifying. Putting aside the price, just the ability was very addictive. Hanju checked the book's cooldown time. 10 million years. Hanju was stunned. He didn't know if he should be happy or disappointed. He was happy that he would not be addicted, but disappointed that such a supreme treasure had a long cooldown time. The cooldown time would increase exponentially after each use. Wouldn't he have to wait for 100 million years, or even longer after using it a second time? Hanju put away the mystical destiny book, and his sage sense swept through the heavenly Tao. All living beings did not change. Everything was as before. Was this a change? Hanju suddenly thought of something. Do the chaotic deities have a similar supreme treasure? Ultimate supreme treasure cannot be deduced. He thought of a voice he had heard a long time ago. Transcend the illusion. It would indeed be a lie if everything could be changed. What was a real existence that could not be altered? Hanju adjusted his state of mind. He couldn't be affected by the mystical destiny book. This treasure looked terrifying, but it required too much cultivation. The price paid was not something that the Book of Misfortune could compare to. Using the mystical destiny book to kill enemies might not be as worth it as the Book of Misfortune. It was better to do it himself. If this treasure fell into the hands of other living beings, and their cultivation levels stagnated, the user would probably die after using it 2 or 3 times. Or maybe like Hanju before, they would directly want to become the strongest and die immediately. After all, the other cultivators did not have the system's notification. Chapter 763 900,000 years old. Chapter 763 900,000 years old. In the dark forbidden zone, an island floated quietly. 9 Taoists meditating were on this island. Among them was Cave Master Clear Wind, who had gone to the Heavenly Tao previously. Cave Master Clear Wind opened his eyes and said, "Everyone, we should leave. There's no point in staying in the Heavenly Tao." The other Taoists opened their eyes. One of the Taoists snorted. "I said long ago that we shouldn't have come. The Heavenly Tao is guarded by a chaotic fiend celestial. The primordial fiend celestial is the natural enemy of the chaotic fiend celestials. It will definitely be targeted by the chaotic fiend celestial of the Heavenly Tao once it is born. A commotion will definitely ensue when we fight at that time. There's no need for us to keep staring." The other Taoist spoke. "Yes, this chaotic fiend celestial defeated 2 great Tao divine spirits in a row, and even killed 14 great Tao sages. He can be said to be the strongest chaotic fiend celestial. Then let's go. We can open our own Tao field. There's no need to return to the ancient desolate." That's right. The beginning deity was frightened by the Tao ancestor, and was too cautious. Aren't we his pawns? The pawns he used to test the Heavenly Tao. Please keep reading on Wuxia World. Will the beginning deity be offended? What are you afraid of? The Tao ancestor is only missing, not dead. The beginning deity probably doesn't dare to escape the ancient desolate. The Taoists talked to each other, and had the same opinion. They all wanted to leave. Hanju's achievements were too impressive. To be honest, they didn't dare to provoke him at all. This was also the reason why they didn't dare to infiltrate the Heavenly Tao. The tall Taoist in the lead stared at Cave Master Clear Wind and asked, "Tell me what you think of that chaotic fiend celestial." Cave Master Clear Wind said, "This person is ruthless, but he doesn't like to kill. He has a strong hostility towards the chaos. I was chased away by him not long after I went there. In addition, he is filled with reverence for the Tao ancestor. This means that there is another possibility. The Tao ancestor is his backing. During this period of time, I've been recruiting Heavenly Tao cultivators to understand the development of the Heavenly Tao in the past million years. After discovering that the Tao ancestor had gone missing, the Heavenly Tao began to collapse, and was played by the Dark Forbidden Lord, until the Divine Might Heavenly Sage rose. This chaotic fiend celestial was probably sent by the Tao ancestor to protect the Heavenly Tao. Once we infiltrate, we might not only offend the Divine Might Heavenly Sage, but also the Tao ancestor." The tall Taoist's expression changed. After a long while, he said, "All right, then let us retreat. We of the Purple Firmament 9 Taoists are not the deity's lackeys. There's no need to die for them." The other sages were relieved. They immediately left. Hanju had been cultivating with all his might ever since he used the mystical destiny book, fighting to regain his lost lifespan. The lifespan deduction would be nothing as long as he broke through. Time flew. Another 100,000 years passed. Detected that you are 900,000 years old, and your life has taken another step forward. You have the following choices. 1. Exit seclusion immediately. Raise the reputation of the primordial fiend celestial, and stir up the great Tao immeasurable calamity. You can obtain a chance to upgrade the Tao field. 2. Cultivate in a low-profile manner, and stay away from trouble. You can obtain a great Tao fragment, a creation spirit stone, and a supreme treasure. The first option was to upgrade the Tao field just like when he reached 800,000 years of age. Hanju had already used his lifespan to make all living beings think that he was a chaotic fiend celestial. How could he go out and spread the name of the primordial fiend celestial? He silently chose the second option. Could there be another impressive supreme treasure this time? Congratulations on obtaining the Chaotic Supreme Treasure World Visualization Heart Bracelet. World Visualization Heart Bracelet. Chaotic Supreme Treasure. When the Kiliacosm world appeared in the chaos, it was born as a supreme treasure. It is a providence supreme treasure, formed by the gathering of the power of the world. It can resist great Tao attacks. Another defensive supreme treasure? Hanju was not surprised or disappointed. He immediately took out the World Visualization Heart Bracelet and started refining it. There were a total of 18 beads on the World Visualization Heart Bracelet. Their colors were all different, and they were tightly connected into a circle. 80 years later, the refinement was successful. The 18 beads dispersed and flew quickly. They surrounded Hanju, sometimes connecting into a circle, and sometimes scattering into other patterns, as if symbolizing the evolution of the world. Hanju took out the Creation Spirit Stone and chose a ball of Fiend Celestial Qi to fuse with. Then, he came to the second Tao field and released the weak water Fiend Celestial, created by the Creation Spirit Stone 100,000 years ago to let Morong Qi fetch it. Tao Comprehension Sword looked at him and asked curiously, "Why can you constantly create chaotic Fiend Celestials?" Hanju glanced at her and didn't say anything. Li Yao said, "Don't ask what you shouldn't ask." Hanju said, "That's right. Knowing too much is not good for you. Sometimes, even if you don't want to say it, those transcendent existences can capture the memories in your mind. You don't want to be forced to betray me in the future, right?" Tao Comprehension Sword hurriedly shook her head. Hanju smiled and returned to the main Tao field. Tao Comprehension Sword clicked her tongue in wonder. Master has another supreme treasure on him. I wonder where he obtained it. Doesn't he stay inside all the time? The World Visualization Heart Bracelet was clearly extraordinary. Li Yao said calmly, "It's just that you think he doesn't want to go out. An existence like him doesn't have to do it personally. He can directly enter the chaos and have many methods to find Dharma treasures." Tao Comprehension Sword felt that it made sense. Hanju suddenly thought of something as he sat on the 36th grade Reincarnation World Destruction Black Lotus. It was useless to leave his previous Dharma treasures in the system space. It was better to give them to his disciples. Yes, he would give it to them in the future. Hanju closed his eyes and continued cultivating. He began to look forward to the reward. Year after year passed. 70,000 years passed in the blink of an eye. On this day, Heavenly Venerate Xian Du's voice entered his ears. "Fellow Taoist Han, please come to the Universal Hall." Hanju opened his eyes. His sage sense swept through the 33rd heaven, and he sensed no aura of a powerful enemy. He followed them to the Universal Hall. As usual, after Hanju arrived, Heavenly Venerate Xian Du sent a voice transmission to the other Heavenly Tao sages. South Extreme Heavenly Venerate, Sect Master Tianju, Emperor Shao, Heavenly Venerate Wufa, Qiu Shilai, Fong Liang, Huang Zuantian Jin Shen Pan Xen, Su Dudao Su Qi Li Taigu Primordial Chaos Buddha, Zhang Guxing and Long Hao arrived one after another. First, the Heavenly Tao has another sage position. What do you think? Heavenly Venerate Xian Du asked. Although there was no need for the primordial purple qi, it was still difficult for a perfected pseudo-sage to become a sage. He needed the help of the sages, so the decision was in their hands. The sages began to recommend. Hanju opened the emails. Your good friend Divine Lord Peacock was attacked by your enemy, the Curse Fiend Celestial. Your son Han Tua has grasped a chaotic divine armament. His providence has increased greatly. Your grand disciple Chu Shuren has stepped into the chaotic river of destiny. His providence has increased greatly. Your descendant Han Yu was cursed by a mysterious curse. Your good friend Huang Zuantian transmigrated and was attacked by a mysterious mighty figure. He was severely injured. Your good friend Evil Heavenly Emperor was cursed by a mysterious curse. Your enemy, the first Life Black Sovereign, has cultivated a karma mystical power. Hanju glanced at Huang Zuantian. This fellow didn't look to have been severely injured. Instead, Pan Xian looked distracted. Looking down, could it be that the reason why the first Life Black Sovereign learned the karma mystical power was to avoid the curse? Chapter 764 Destiny Gaining Credit. Chapter 764 Destiny. Gaining credit. The sages chatted for a long time before finally selecting Ji Xianxian as the new sage. Clearly, there was more or less the suspicion of flattery. However, in terms of qualifications, Ji Xianxian was indeed qualified. He was a pseudo-sage, and he controlled the heavenly race. Ever since the heavenly race was abandoned by the sages and moved to the netherworld, they had been silently contributing. Later, with the Heavenly Calamity Emperor's support, the heavenly race and the calamity race intermarried, causing the heavenly race to become stronger and stronger. Speaking of which, Hanju hadn't paid attention to this disciple for a long time. Ji Xianxian had been cultivating in seclusion, without any complaints after making a mistake back then. Heavenly Venerate Xian Du said again. Next, let's talk about the primordial 10 sages. This legend can't convince the chaos. We need to choose 10 geniuses who can represent the heavenly Tao to make a name for themselves. They can't be sages. Primordial 10 sages? Hanju deduced silently, and didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Heavenly Venerate Xian Du really knew how to play. Perhaps it was ridiculous in the great Tao sage's eyes, but that was not necessarily the case to all living beings. Please keep reading on Wuxia World. More people would believe it. Heavenly Venerate Xian Du was very capable in terms of management. The reincarnation space he had made previously was still developing. It was enough to show his methods. The sages began to list the names of individuals they felt could become one of the primordial 10 sages. Hanju said, "There's no need to choose from the hidden sect. Too much is as bad as not enough. Instead, it's not good. The heavenly Tao also needs to give other cultivators a chance. In the future, the heavenly Tao will only become greater and greater. The power of the sages will constantly be distributed. Everyone will rise as the heavenly Tao becomes stronger." Hearing this, the sages praised him. Hanju was not arrogant. He felt that this was boring and wanted to not get involved, but he didn't show it. Hanju didn't participate in the topic after that. After the primordial 10 sages matter was settled, Pan Xian said, "Life hurt me. When will the heavenly Tao destroy life?" His tone was indignant. The other sages were silent. Life was not something the heavenly Tao could resist. Who knew how many great Tao sages were hidden in it? Hanju asked, "How did life provoke you?" Pan Xian gritted his teeth and said, "They have their eyes on the chaotic heavenly road. In addition, I suspect that one of my supreme treasures has been stolen by them." He really couldn't find a reason. Speaking of which, life had only wandered the chaotic heavenly road to gather information. He had turned the heaven-opening axe into dust to vent, because he had been taught a lesson. The South Extreme Heavenly Venerate asked curiously, "What supreme treasure is it? The heaven-opening axe, or the chaotic green lotus?" The other sages' expressions turned strange. Pan Xian's supreme treasure had been stolen. For some reason, Pan Xian felt inexplicably uneasy being stared at by them, as if he had fallen into a tiger's den. He gritted his teeth and said, "In any case, a treasure has been stolen." Hanju narrowed his eyes and deduced. However, Pan Xian had a huge amount of heavenly Tao providence on him. He couldn't deduce it. The current Pan Xian was already enslaved. No matter what, he was still Hanju's subordinate. He had to stand up for him. Hanju said, "I'll consider this matter, but life's power is unfathomable. Don't act rashly. Perhaps life won't last long even without the heavenly Tao taking action." Pan Xian could only give up. The other sages also relaxed. The heavenly Tao had finally welcomed a peaceful era, and it had only lasted for hundreds of thousands of years. They didn't want to break it. To sages, hundreds of thousands of years was really fast. They were usually busy cultivating. Like Hanju, everything changed when they opened their eyes. 2 hours later, the sages left. After Hanju returned to the Taoist temple, he first teleported to the second Tao field and released the long-born extreme darkness fiend celestial. As usual, Morongqi came to receive him. After that, he returned to the main Tao field to cultivate. The life faction was restless and would find trouble with the heavenly Tao sooner or later. Hanju wasn't the first life Black Sovereign's match for the time being, so he felt the pressure. He had to hurry up and cultivate. The earlier he achieved the great Tao, the better. In the dark space, there was a dense fog. In a pool sat 3 figures. Other than Li Daokong and Shi Dudao, another person could be seen. It was Ancestor Shitian. Ancestor Shitian was like a completely different person from before. He wore a black Taoist robe and had been frowning for a long time. A vertical pattern appeared, and a wisp of evil aura surrounded him. He was more like a mental demon. At this moment, a loud voice sounded. "Your first mission is here. You must carry it out perfectly." Hearing this, Ancestor Shitian, Li Daokong, and Shi Dudao opened their eyes. The loud voice continued. "Ancestor Shitian, as the leader of 3 lives, go capture the heavenly sect master and the devil ancestor Luo Ho." Ancestor Shitian frowned. "The heavenly sect master is too powerful. We're probably not his match. The devil ancestor Luo Ho is the Tao ancestor's Dharma idol clone. After provoking the great Tao divine spirit, you want to provoke the Tao ancestor again?" Li Daokong and Shi Dudao frowned. They had also heard of these 2 names. They were mighty figures in the ancient legends of the heavenly Tao. "The heavenly sect master has already been severely injured by me. His strength is less than 10%. You can also convince him. As for Luo Ho, the Tao ancestor's providence has spread throughout the chaos. He is not the only Dharma idol. He will not appear for Luo Ho. After these 2 become life, they will belong to you and move with you in the future." Ancestor Shitian was silent. A door of light appeared beside the pool. Li Daokong frowned, and Shi Dudao raised his eyebrows. They all had their own motives, and wanted to hide in the life faction. They didn't expect to have to carry out a mission so quickly. Li Daokong was working for Hanju. Although Shi Dudao guessed that Hanju was the Dark Forbidden Lord, in his opinion, the Dark Forbidden Lord was his true identity. Hanju was only a disguise. The 2 of them worked in completely different directions. One wanted to eliminate life, while the other wanted to understand life and find a chance to fuse into it. Ancestor Shitian stood up first and walked towards the door of light. "Let's go. Perhaps this is our fate." Shi Dudao followed closely behind. Li Daokong hesitated for a moment, and then chose to follow. They had cultivated here for hundreds of thousands of years, and their strength had long been overwhelming. They could use this battle to verify their cultivation results. In an empty and sinister hall, the divine robed Taoist sat in a red pillar of light. His robes fluttered slightly. A figure arrived in the hall. It was the Curse Fiend Celestial. The Curse Fiend Celestial bowed and said, "Exalted God, I need your help." The divine robed Taoist opened his eyes and stared at the Curse Fiend Celestial. He had never thought much of the Curse Fiend Celestial before. When he became Hanju's slave, he didn't think of it either, so he didn't mention it to him. Now that the Curse Fiend Celestial had appeared, he was considering if he should kill this fellow and ask Hanju for credit. "What is it?" the divine robed Taoist asked coldly. The Curse Fiend Celestial's heart tightened. The divine robed Taoist had changed. He had always laughed with him in the past. Why had he suddenly become so cold? Could it be because of the battle with Hanju that his Tao heart had suffered a setback? As the Curse Fiend Celestial thought, he said, "Divine Lord Peacock has been pestering me. If this continues, I'm afraid I'll die in his hands." At the mention of this, the Curse Fiend Celestial gritted his teeth, his eyes filled with anger. His hatred for Divine Lord Peacock had already surpassed his hatred for Hanju. Chapter 765 I Want Revenge. Chapter 765 I Want Revenge. Why is Divine Lord Peacock chasing after you? He was also surprised. It had been hundreds of thousands of years. What kind of blood feud was this? The Curse Fiend Celestial said gloomily, "I'm not sure either. It should be related to Hanju. Divine Lord Peacock has been chasing after me ever since he left the Heavenly Tao. We didn't know each other at all before this." The divine robed Taoist's eyes flickered. "You mean that Divine Lord Peacock is under Hanju's instructions?" The Curse Fiend Celestial nodded and gritted his teeth. "There's a high chance that Hanju seems to be proficient in subduing people. I've asked around. The Heavenly Tao's Chiu Shilai and Heavenly Venerate Wufa were once enemies with Hanju. Now they are Hanju's strongest supporters. It's the same for the Calamity race's Heavenly Calamity Emperor. It's strange that Divine Lord Peacock can escape unscathed from the Heavenly Tao. There's only one possibility, and that is that he has submitted to Hanju. That's right. That must be it. With the Divine Robe Taoist's reminder, the Curse Fiend Celestial connected to other information and quickly figured it out. Hatred appeared on his face. Please keep reading on Wuxia World. EU damn Hanju, he stole my great Tao and kept chasing after me. Although he hated Hanju, he had never targeted him. Why did Hanju keep chasing after him? This was too much. No, he was bullying the great Tao too much. The Curse Fiend Celestial looked up at the Divine Robe Taoist and said, Exalted God, I'm not asking you to kill Hanju. Kill Divine Lord Peacock first. However, the Divine Robe Taoist did not answer him. Instead, he stared at him. The atmosphere became strange. The Curse Fiend Celestial seemed to have thought of something. The poisonous worm on his face stopped and his body trembled slightly. He said, Forget it since you're troubled. I won't disturb your cultivation. He turned around and wanted to leave. Just as he moved, a powerful force suddenly froze him. He couldn't move. Don't leave since you're already here. The Divine Robe Taoist's voice entered the Curse Fiend Celestial's ears. The Curse Fiend Celestial's eyes widened in despair. I see. No wonder the Divine Robe Taoist could return alive. This move. The Curse Fiend Celestial suddenly felt fear towards Hanju. Hanju was not as cautious as he looked. He wasn't only guarding an area. Now it seemed that Hanju had been plotting ahead. Protecting the Heavenly Tao was only the surface, making people think that he was just afraid of being disturbed. Oh no, he was screwed. Buzhou Divine Mountain. Hanyu sat under the old tree. A cool breeze blew past and fused with the world, turning into a beautiful painting. At this moment, Hanyu suddenly opened his eyes. He raised his eyebrows and muttered, What is this feeling? He stood up and walked down the mountain. At the foot of the mountain, a woman in green lay on the ground. Her abdomen was stained red with blood, and her face was pale. She was on the verge of death. Hanyu appeared in front of her with a frown. Fighting was forbidden on Buzhou Divine Mountain. In other words, this woman had fled here with injuries. Hanyu hesitated for a moment before healing her injuries. With his cultivation level, treating an immortal realm cultivator was as easy as flipping his palm. Soon the woman in green woke up. Hanyu had already disappeared. The woman in green was pleasantly surprised to find that her injuries had healed. She touched her abdomen and muttered, So there really is a human ancestor in seclusion here. She stood up and turned to look at the peak that she could not see. Her eyes became firm as she resolutely went up the mountain. Several months later, the woman in green stopped halfway up the mountain. Looking up, rolling thunderclouds surrounded the mountain, forming an insurmountable cloud wall. The green-robed woman knelt down and said loudly, I want to acknowledge the human ancestor as my master and cultivate the great Tao. I only want revenge. After my revenge is successful, I'm willing to come to Buzhou Divine Mountain to serve you forever. Her voice was very pleasant, but Hanyu was unmoved. The woman in green shouted for several days, but did not receive a reply. She found a place to meditate and cultivate, waiting for the senior to answer. She waited for 3,000 years. Under the old tree, Hanyu opened his eyes with interest. He asked, 3,000 years have passed. Do you still want revenge? The woman in green in meditation suddenly opened her eyes in surprise. She hurriedly stood up and knelt down. She cupped her fists and said, Yes, senior. What hatred is it? It's been 3,000 years, and you still can't let it go? The woman in green was only at the immortal realm. 3,000 years wasn't a short period of time for her. Hearing this, the woman in green replied, The hatred of killing my master. My master adopted me and raised me like his own daughter. I won't be able to live in peace if I don't avenge him. Hanyu pinched his fingers to deduce, and his expression turned strange. Not hearing anything, the woman in green hurriedly said, Senior, are you still there? I don't need you to help me take revenge. You can just teach me a mystical power. I will serve you forever after I take revenge. Hanyu said faintly, Your master is an immortal emperor, so your enemy is an immortal emperor. Do you know what an immortal emperor means? The woman in green was silent for a while before gritting her teeth. I know it's difficult, but I have to do it. Then do you know who's behind that immortal emperor? I don't know. The green-robed woman's face was pale. Although she didn't know who the enemy's backing was, she knew that in the immortal world, all cultivators had their own relationships. The higher their cultivation level, the greater their background. Hanyu said casually, "That's a deity realm cultivator." The woman in green trembled and lowered her head. Deity realm? The woman in green did not dare to imagine. She had only heard of existences above the immortal emperor realm, but she had never seen them. She had once witnessed an immortal emperor attack. It could be said to be able to pluck the stars and move the moon. It was overwhelming and peerlessly powerful. Even an immortal emperor was like this, let alone a deity realm cultivator. Do you know who's behind that deity realm cultivator? The woman lowered her head even more. Hanyu continued, "When will revenge end? There's always someone stronger. Hatred is endless. Why go that far?" The woman in green gritted her teeth and said, "I'm not willing to give up. I want revenge even if I have to die for it." Hanyu stopped talking. The woman in green continued kneeling. She knelt for 500 years. As she knelt, she absorbed chi and cultivated. She was still recalling the senior's words. Should she take revenge? On this day, Hanyu's voice floated down again. "Have you thought it through?" The woman in green was stunned for a moment before she subconsciously said, "I want revenge." Her expression became firm when she said the last word. With that said, the rolling thunderclouds above her suddenly dispersed. Strands of sunlight scattered down and shone on the woman in green, making her feel as if a lifetime had passed. She looked up and saw a figure standing at the edge of the cliff, looking down at her. She was stunned as her gaze focused on him. She thought that this senior had white hair, but she didn't expect him to be such a handsome man. Never having seen such a handsome man before, she was momentarily stunned. Hanyu smiled and said, "Come on up. Since you insist, I'll teach you a mystical power. However, I won't take you in as my disciple. It's just to add a hint of interest to the boring years." Chapter 766 A Million Years Old, Third Dao Field. Chapter 766 A Million Years Old, Third Dao Field. Time passed quickly. Another 1,000 years passed after Hanyu accepted the woman in green. Under his guidance, the woman's cultivation improved by leaps and bounds. Most of the time, Hanyu sat under the old tree and watched the woman in green cultivate her mystical power. Such days made him feel good. At least, he was not as lonely as before. On this day, the green-robed woman had just finished cultivating her mystical power. She sat down in front of Hanyu and asked curiously, "Senior, who are you? I heard that the master of Buzhou Divine Mountain was once a supreme expert of the human race. He contributed greatly to the human race's current situation." Hanyu did not open his eyes as he replied, "It's all hearsay. I'm just a cultivator who doesn't fit in with the mortal world." The woman in green asked, "Then what's your cultivation level? Deity realm? Or the legendary Zenith Heaven Golden Immortal?" Hanyu said, "You will naturally be able to see through my cultivation when you reach my realm. Please keep reading on Wuxia World." "Ew, I can reach your realm?" the woman in green asked in surprise. Hanyu smiled. "That's true. You'll probably die in the hands of your enemies. That day won't come." The woman in green curled her lips. Senior always said such things, thinking that it was impossible for her to take revenge. She asked, "When can I reach the Emperor realm?" Hanyu said slowly, "Probably in tens of thousands of years." Tens of thousands of years. The woman in green was moved. She gritted her teeth and stood up to the side to meditate. The top of Buzhou Divine Mountain regained its calm. Here there were no traces of time. Everything seemed eternal. More than 20,000 years passed. 3 lines of words appeared in front of Hanju. "Detected that you are 1,000,000 years old, and your life has taken another huge step forward. You have the following choices. 1. Exit seclusion immediately and preach the Tao to the chaos, raising the great Tao immeasurable calamity. You can obtain a great Tao fragment, a creation spirit stone, a heavenly Tao spirit stone, and a great Tao sage level guard. 2. Cultivate in a low-profile manner and maintain your true nature. Stay away from trouble. You can obtain a great Tao fragment, a creation spirit stone, a heavenly Tao spirit stone, and open the third Tao field. Hanju's eyes lit up. It's time. As expected of the million-year-old mark, the system was not playing tricks this time. Hanju directly chose the second option. The third Tao field was good. It could inherit everything in the main Tao field, and even teleport. When the main Tao field was broken through, he could still escape to the third Tao field. The third Tao field couldn't be left in the heavenly Tao. He had to find a suitable hiding place in the chaos. It was best if no one knew. Hanju first took out the creation spirit stone and fused it with one of the fiend's celestial qi. Who should he use the heavenly Tao spirit stone on? The heaven-opening axe was already an ultimate Tao treasure. Would Hanju be able to control it if it was any stronger? Using it on the Book of Misfortune felt useless. Hanju didn't have a goal to curse it to death for the time being. As for the first life Black Sovereign, he still had to be the Dark Forbidden Lord's scapegoat. Forget it, I'll keep it for now. Hanju took out the Great Tao fragment. He had finally accumulated 9 more. Hanju had already thought of a new Great Tao mystical power. He should give the Dark Forbidden Lord some combat strength. He wanted to create a mystical power that could kill enemies in dreams. The 9 Great Tao fragments immediately fused and Hanju entered a state of Tao comprehension. At the peak of Buzhou Divine Mountain, Hanyu looked at the woman in green who had walked back from the lightning tribulation and sighed with emotion. You finally reached the Emperor realm. Not bad. It's earlier than I expected. The green-robed woman came in front of him and knelt down. She bowed and said, Thank you, Senior. If not for your nurturing, I would never have achieved what I have today. Hanyu smiled. The woman in green gritted her teeth. Senior, can I take revenge now? Hanyu closed his eyes and said, Your enemy just reached the deity realm not long ago. The woman in green was as if struck by lightning. Her eyes widened and her body trembled. Leaves fluttered past. At this moment, the scene was desolate and pitiful. Is the other party a prodigy? The woman in green asked bitterly. Prodigies were the most dazzling existences in this era. There were countless geniuses. This was also a golden age. However, because it was the golden age of geniuses, all living beings were very tolerant of them. This was because geniuses represented hope and the backbone of the heavenly Tao when it was in danger in the future. The various providence sects would take care of them. Hanyu said, Yes, he has the potential to reach the Zenith Heaven realm. Despair appeared on the woman's face. Zenith Heaven Golden Immortal. They were all ancestor-level existences on the path of cultivation. The woman in green was indignant. She stared at Hanyu with a hopeful expression and asked, Senior, do I really have no hope of seeking revenge? Hanyu said, There's not so much luck in the world. You being saved by me is already the greatest providence in your life. You're originally someone who was fated to die. Sometimes letting go is harder and also a greater achievement. The woman in green lowered her head. Hanyu said slowly, I once had the anger of revenge in my heart. My family, my parents, my siblings, and even my sweetheart died in front of me. At that moment, I hated the entire world. I hated the immortals, the heavens, and my own uselessness. The woman in green looked up at him in a daze. Hanyu said, Later, someone helped me take revenge. The woman in green's eyes lit up. Was Senior hinting at her? Hanyu changed the topic. So what if revenge was taken? Look at me now. I'm alone and guarding this mountain. I have no one to rely on. If I don't take revenge, my enemies won't live for hundreds of thousands of years. What's the point of my revenge? The woman in green said stubbornly. At least you've avenged yourself and have nothing to worry about. I'm unwilling to let my enemies live freely for hundreds of thousands of years. Hanyu said helplessly. To tell you the truth, that prodigy is backed by the Jie School. I don't have to tell you about the Jie School's foundation, do I? Jie School. The woman in green immediately collapsed to the ground. She smiled bitterly and suddenly felt that all these years of cultivation were meaningless. Hanyu did not comfort her. In fact, that prodigy was nothing in his eyes. He only needed to find someone to talk about this to decide the life and death of that prodigy. However, He had no reason to do so. He didn't know this woman anything. Han Yu opened his eyes and said, "If you want revenge, then go down the mountain and seek the help of a stronger mighty figure. You might be able to succeed if you are lucky." The woman in green stood up and took a deep breath. She bowed to Han Yu and left the mountain without hesitation. Han Yu closed his eyes and continued cultivating. It was just an incident on the path of cultivation. He didn't care about it at all. Several months later, the woman in green returned to the top of the mountain. She stared at Han Yu and said, "I walked all the way to the foot of Buzhou Divine Mountain and thought about many things. I will definitely die if I go to take revenge. I can die in battle for Master with no regrets. But I promised you that I would serve you. You have taught me for tens of thousands of years. I will owe you too much if I die like this. I'm willing to serve you. I'll take revenge when my lifespan is up. I can be considered to have avenged my dead master even if I die." Han Yu did not reply. The woman in green walked to the side and sat in meditation at her original cultivation place. Buzhou Divine Mountain was still quiet. Only the wind stirred everything in the world. Chapter 767 Dark Forbidden Zone. Chapter 767 Dark Forbidden Zone. It took Han Yu 81 years to create the great Tao mystical power he liked. Even as a great Tao sage, it was very difficult to create a great Tao mystical power. A great Tao mystical power was not only a great Tao mystical power, but the origin of the great Tao. What should I call it? Dream killer? No, it's pathetic, Han Yu muttered to himself. After hesitating for a while, he named this mystical power the Dark Forbidden Zone. This mystical power did not only cause damage to the enemy in the dream. After all, it was a dream. Such damage could not hurt the main body. Therefore, he thought of the great sage Void Soul's dark instinct and imitated its profundity to create the Dark Forbidden Zone. The Dark Forbidden Zone transformed the dream realm into a mysterious domain. It could pull both sides' bodies into this mysterious domain for them to fight. The Dark Forbidden Zone couldn't be spied on. In battle, as long as Han Yu could kill the other party, he was not afraid of being exposed. He was in a good mood and had another long-range killing method. In a good mood, he began to preach the Tao to the disciples of the 100-Peak Immortal River. With the help of his clone, Li Xian'ao had sent many geniuses into the 100-Peak Immortal River over the years. The number of disciples had already exceeded 5 million. In the past, the number could be controlled because Li Xian'ao forbade his disciples from giving birth. Later, Li Xian'ao often went out and Han Yu didn't show himself. Many disciples couldn't help but give birth to disciples. However, with the hidden punishment lineage led by Zhou Mingyue, this phenomenon didn't dare to expand. However, after so many years, the number of disciples still doubled. Please keep reading on Wuxia World. After preaching for 100 years, Han Yu started to check his emails. Your grand disciple Chu Shuren obtained great Tao merit because he preached the Tao to billions of living beings. Your good friend Evil Heavenly Emperor was cursed by a mysterious curse. Your disciple Ji Xianxian has attained the Tao and obtained the primordial chaos Tao fruit. Your good friend Zhou Fan has traveled through time and changed his fate. Your good friend Mo Fuzhou has revived. Your son Han Tua was attacked by a mysterious demon X50093272. Your good friend Jing Tiangong has received guidance from your good friend ancestor Shitian. His cultivation has increased greatly. Your good friend Jing Tiangong has cursed too many times and has comprehended a trace of the cursed great Tao. Your descendant Han Yu has comprehended the true meaning of heaven and earth. His spirit is wandering in the great void. Han Yu blinked. Zhou Fan had revived Mo Fuzhou? How did he do that? If he had been revived in the past, Mo Fuzhou should have been living in Han Yu's memories. He checked his interpersonal relationships and saw that Mo Fuzhou's portrait had indeed appeared again. Interesting. Han Yu saw Mo Fuzhou and couldn't help but reminisce. They were all youths back then. Mo Fuzhou was high-spirited, but Han Yu was timid. They took two completely different paths. Han Yu continued reading. Jing Tiangong, who he had not been paying attention for a long time, started to be active again. This fellow had left the divine palace a long time ago to head to the chaos. He didn't expect him to still be cursing people, as expected of a loyal believer of the dark forbidden lord. Why was ancestor Shitian guiding him? Hanju found it interesting, but only slightly. In any case, Jing Tiangong was his follower. His favorability had not decreased. Reading on, Hanju saw another email. Your enemy, the Curse Fiend Celestial, was killed by your good friend, the Divine Robe Taoist. His body and soul were destroyed. The Curse Great Tao returned to the chaos. The Curse Fiend Celestial was gone? Hanju checked his interpersonal relationships and discovered that the portrait was really gone. He had a strange expression. In the past, he had treated the Curse Fiend Celestial as a big boss. He didn't expect it to be gone just like that. Good, this will show how powerful I am. He didn't need to personally attack to kill a potential enemy. The Curse Fiend Celestial's death had a profound meaning, which meant that the restrictions of the Dark Forbidden Lord had decreased greatly. It had to be said that Taoist Divine Robe was a talent. Previously, he had left 2 backup plans when attacking the Heavenly Tao. He definitely valued his opponent greatly. This kind of person looked down on the enemy on the surface and deliberately created a stupid, arrogant image, but he secretly prepared all sorts of methods to disgust the enemy. Having such a subordinate was good, as he could handle responsibilities reliably. Hanju's favorability towards the Divine Robe Taoist increased. After reading all the emails, Hanju recalled something. He suddenly wanted to go out for a walk. He was absolutely invincible, and was not afraid of danger in the Heavenly Tao. In any case, time was long. He would spend 100 years wandering the Heavenly Tao, and experience the current mortal world. Hanju sent out a soul thought, and transformed into a clone. He quickly flew to the immortal world, and his main body continued cultivating. The image of the clone was the same as the main body. Although the supreme treasures were illusory, they were still impressive. Hanju didn't want to conceal himself. He had been cautious for too long. Why would he still pretend and hide within his own territory? He wasn't traveling incognito. He just wanted to see the world. The first stop was Buzhou Divine Mountain. He saw Hanyu's situation in the emails. This kid was really similar to him. He had settled down in the long years and cultivated in peace. On the peak of Buzhou Divine Mountain, Hanyu sat under the old tree and looked at the woman in green, who was cleaning the Taoist temple. He said helplessly, "There's no need to clean. I'm not staying inside. Keeping it is just me thinking about my master." The woman in green could have cast a spell, but she felt that it was too frivolous, so she personally did it. Hearing Hanyu mention his master, the green-robed woman walked out of the Taoist temple and asked curiously, "Your master must be very powerful, right? Where did he go?" Hanyu's eyes drifted as he said slowly, "I'm not sure, but he must be chasing his own Tao, and will return one day." "Your master is stronger than you?" the green-robed woman asked curiously. Hanyu's bearing was the most stable and sage-like she had ever seen. Hanyu smiled. "Of course. I think my master is the strongest." "The strongest?" The green-robed woman blinked and did not believe him. After all, the Heavenly Tao was extremely vast, and there were many geniuses. No one could say how many ancient mighty figures were hidden, let alone the legends of sages. "Oh, your master is the strongest. Then what am I?" A voice floated over. Hanyu and the woman in green turned around. It was Hanju. Both of them were stunned. Hanju wore the Time Tao robe and the Grand Primordium Divine Crown. He was mighty and domineering. 3,000 heavenly dragons wrapped around his waist, and dragon shadows swayed behind him. It was dazzling. The ultimate diamond bracelet on his wrists burned with flames. The world visualization heart bracelet surrounded him and changed into various forms. In addition to his unparalleled appearance, even Hanyu was stunned. Hanyu hurriedly stood up in fear. He bowed and said with a trembling voice, "Of course you're the strongest. My master is nothing compared to you." The woman in green came back to her senses. She was shocked upon seeing Hanyu lose his composure and suspect her eyes. She carefully sized up Hanju, and suddenly felt that he and Hanyu were extremely similar, like brothers. Hanyu noticed her gaze and shouted in a low voice, "Impudent! Get down the mountain and cultivate. You are not allowed to go up the mountain without my orders. The woman in green was shocked. This was the first time Han Yu had revealed a ferocious expression. She was so frightened that she hurriedly bowed to Han Ju and flew down the mountain. Han Ju landed in front of Han Yu and smiled. Why are you so angry? Who is she to you? Han Yu suppressed his nervousness and replied, she's considered half a disciple. Chapter 768 Future Sage. Chapter 768 Future Sage. At the top of Buzhou Divine Mountain, Han Ju and Han Yu sat under the old tree. Han Ju asked him to talk about his experiences over the years. Han Yu didn't dare to hide anything, speaking of which, the two of them had actually only met a few times, most of them in his dreams. Han Yu knew this ancestor's identity and was very restrained. They were related by blood, but they were too far apart, and the two of them had never been together. It was very difficult for Han Yu to be close to Han Ju. Han Ju listened to Han Yu patiently, and with relish. It had to be said that although Han Yu often cultivated diligently, his previous experience in the chaos was even richer than Han Ju's entire life. Han Yu finally finished after a few days. There's really nothing else. I've finished explaining, Han Yu said aggrievedly. Han Ju smiled. Not bad, not bad. It's very interesting. I find it very interesting. Please keep reading on Wuxia World. Han Yu was helpless. Was this ancestor here to listen to a story? Won't everything in the world enter your eyes if you calculate with your fingers? Han Yu could only complain in his heart, and did not dare to say it. In fact, he was still very happy. The fact that Han Ju looked for him meant that he still cared about him. He was flattered. The ancestor in front of him was an extraordinary existence that even sages might not see. Han Ju said, if you maintain such a cultivation attitude, I will remind you in the future that becoming a sage is not an unattainable dream, much less your end. Han Yu was excited and hurriedly kowtowed. Han Ju smiled. You really look like me. Unfortunately, your bloodline is too diluted, and the potential isn't completely inherited. However, as long as you have a tenacious heart, you will surpass all living beings sooner or later. Back then, I was only a mortal. Han Yu nodded excitedly. He was also a little confused earlier, and didn't know if he had chosen the right path. He was full of confidence now that he had received Han Ju's praise. Han Ju stood up, and took out the Heavenly Origin bracelet. This was a Heavenly Tao Numinous treasure, and also a defensive Dharma treasure. This is the Heavenly Origin bracelet, a Heavenly Tao Numinous treasure. Consider it a greeting gift. Han Yu took it flattered. He subconsciously wanted to reject it, but thinking of how Han Ju was an elder, wouldn't he embarrass him if he rejected it? Although Han Ju was friendly to him, he had heard of this ancestor's terrifying legends. Among the sages, Han Ju was definitely the most ruthless. By the way, Han Tua didn't save you back then. It's not that he has a heart of stone. It's just that he was suppressed in the netherworld at that time, and endured pain that you can't imagine. He was actually like you, walking alone in the world. He left me before he was 20 and didn't know my true identity until he followed the evil heavenly emperor. Han Ju said meaningfully. Han Yu's expression became complicated. Han Ju didn't say anything else and left. Ancestor, where are you going? To travel the immortal world and see the heavens. I cultivate well. Do I still need your protection? Han Ju's laughter gradually faded away. Han Yu sighed. This was what attaining the Tao meant. He could do as he pleased and roam the world. Han Yu's eyes became firm. He wanted to become like Han Ju. On the other side, Han Ju walked down the Buzhou Divine Mountain, wanting to experience its majesty. Speaking of which, he had given this mountain to Li Daokong. Along the way, he met the woman in green. She was meditating on the hill. Han Ju's aura was ethereal, and the woman in green didn't notice it. Looking at her, Han Ju had a thought as he waved his right hand gently, and a beam of light quickly surged into the woman's mind. It was Han Ju's great Tao comprehension. Although it was only a trace, it was enough to increase the comprehension of mortals. Han Yu had been alone ever since Qin Ling left. He finally had half a disciple. Han Ju felt that he should take care of her. That was all. The woman in green slowly opened her eyes after an unknown period of time. For some reason, she suddenly felt that the world had changed. To be precise, her senses had transformed. She was even more sensitive to Khanate Qi, spirit Qi, and the essence of the sun and moon. What's happening? The woman in green frowned and muttered to herself. As for Hanju, he had already left. At this moment, Hanyu's voice floated down. Come up. The woman in green's eyes lit up. She immediately went up the mountain and quickly bowed. Hanyu naturally saw Hanju wave at him. Ever since then, the woman in green had fallen into a state of enlightenment. It was obvious that this girl had obtained a huge opportunity. Hanyu had a complicated expression as he asked faintly, "How do you feel?" He actually did not particularly like the woman in green. He only asked someone to accompany him. However, if this girl became stronger, she would definitely take revenge. Ancestor, did you misunderstand my relationship with her? The woman in green said excitedly. You can tell? I suddenly feel that everything is different. Hanyu nodded. Perhaps you obtained the comprehension of the world. Such an opportunity is hard to come by. It might not appear again in the future. The woman in green nodded as if she understood. She asked curiously, Where's that senior? He's already left. Who is he, your elder brother? Hanyu glared at her and scolded her. Don't talk nonsense. He's my ancestor. Forget about this in the future, and don't mention it to anyone. Ancestor? The woman in green clicked her tongue in wonder. Although there was a way to stay youthful in the world, Hanju didn't feel old to her. No wonder Senior was so panicked when facing him. Senior, is he very strong? Even stronger than your master? The woman in green asked curiously. Hanyu had a complicated expression as he said in an unfathomable tone. You've seen the true peak. This is a level that you can't touch no matter how long you cultivate. The woman in green frowned and thought carefully about his words. After leaving Buzhou Divine Mountain, Hanju walked on foot without stopping. The mountains and rivers were majestic, with various lakes and valleys. All sorts of magnificent scenery floated past his eyes. During this time, he also encountered many cultivators, but seeing that his aura was extraordinary, they did not dare to approach him. Hanju recalled the past as he traveled. Not long ago, this world was an existence he respected. He didn't even dare to step foot in it. Year after year passed. On this day, Hanju came to a rugged mountain path that wound around the peaks. Halfway up the mountain, a group of wooden houses that looked like villages could be seen. Hanju heard the sound of children playing. A 7- or 8-year-old child rode a big white wolf out of the bushes beside him and jumped into the forest 1,000 feet away. Hanju narrowed his eyes. He saw a wisp of purple qi on the child. This purple aura was very faint, but it was very mysterious. It wasn't the primordial purple qi, or the great Tao purple qi. It was more like providence. Hanju pinched his fingers to deduce, and was enlightened. A future sage. Over the years, Hanju had seen countless people. The only person who attracted his attention was the child just now. Now the providence of a sage could no longer trigger the system's Khanate providence detection. However, Hanju was a great Tao sage, and could spy on the fate of mortals. Chapter 769 Continuous Favorability Notifications. Chapter 769 Continuous Favorability Notifications. The future sage was not worth mentioning in Hanju's eyes. With the current development of the heavenly Tao, the future heavenly Tao sages would definitely not be a small number. Hanju continued forward and quickly left the forest. In the forest, the child rolled off the wolf's back. He turned around and for some reason he felt lost, as if he had missed something. The young him didn't understand this emotion. He turned around and forgot about it. He was attracted by a wild rabbit in the forest. 10 years later, Hanju came near the Holy Mother sect. He stood on the cliff and faced the wind with a graceful bearing. Looking up, he saw countless jade buildings on the rolling mountains ahead. Female cultivators cultivated in all directions. Some meditated in the forest and some fought in the sky. All of them were filled with immortal qi, like female immortals flying in the sky. Please keep reading on Wuxia World. It's developing well. Hanju praised. Although Li Yao, Tao Comprehension Sword, and Tu Linger had already abdicated. The Holy Mother sect was still in the hands of their disciples. It was still a branch of the hidden sect. At this moment, a group of female disciples passed by on a cloud. One of the yellow-robed women glared at Hanju and shouted, "This is the territory of the Holy Mother sect. Men are not allowed to approach." The other female disciples stared at Hanju, attracted by his handsomeness. They were in seclusion in the sect all year round, and had seen very few men. Even if they had gone out to train, they had never seen a handsome man like him. Immediately, many female disciples fell in love with Hanju at first sight. Hanju smiled and left. "Wait, can you leave your Dao title? We can report it if the seniors of the sect invite you," asked a white-robed woman. She was beautiful, and had a heroic aura between her brows. Her looks were considered top-notch among the female disciples. Hanju waved his hand and said, "I was just passing by." He wasn't interested in these fairies. The joy of men and women could no longer affect Hanju's thoughts. In his eyes, peerless beauties were no different from ordinary women. After Hanju left, the female disciples couldn't help but discuss. "It's all Junior Li's fault. Why did you chase him away? So handsome. What should I do? I think I like him. From his attire, he's probably not an ordinary cultivator. Don't cause trouble. Our Holy Mother sect is not an ordinary sect either. He stopped us the moment we said that. This means that this person is not rude or unreasonable. Sigh, he just left too decisively." Yes, male cultivators would be glib-tongued when they passed by the Holy Mother sect in the past. Very few men see us so calmly. The woman in white listened to her fellow disciples, and couldn't help but look at Hanju's back. Hanju made her inexplicably tempted. She had never felt this way. Even the genius disciples of those Providence sects could not compare. Who was he? A series of favorability notifications appeared in front of Hanju. He ignored them all. Over the years, most of the women he met had a good impression of him. Even some men fell in love with him at first sight. To Hanju, they were just strangers. He couldn't give others opportunities, just because of their favorability towards him. He knew his limits. Others did not like him as a person but his face. The favorability of meeting once was always weak, and easily erased by time. It was just lust. When Hanju walked through the world, outside the 33rd heaven, in the Pango Hall, Pan Xian, Jin Shen, Emperor Shao, Su Dudao, and Ji Xianxin gathered here. The sages had their own circles, and Pan Xian's circle had 2 more sages. Although the sages listened to Hanju, it didn't stop them from forming small circles. Just like the hidden sect, they also had different benefits and differences. Even the personal disciples had small circles. Pan Xian cursed. "Damn it, I'm prepared to fight them to the death." Su Dudao said worriedly. "Didn't Senior Han say not to fight with life for the time being?" Pan Xian smiled. "Even if there's no conflict, we can still fight to the death. Recently, we've been wantonly capturing mighty figures who escaped from the ancient desolate. We can disrupt the situation." Jin Shin said. "Actually, we can also rope in those mighty figures to join the heavenly Tao, just like how fellow Taoist Han roped in Great Sage Void Soul." Great Sage Void Soul was a great Tao sage. In addition to Hanju, 2 great Tao sages protected the heavenly Tao. He wasn't afraid even if the new great Tao sage had the intention to rebel. Ji Xianxin said, "Doesn't that mean that we're going to the chaos?" He had never been to the chaos, so he was a little nervous. Pan Xian said, "Don't worry. I'll go alone first. You can each choose a batch of cultivators. They'll be useful when the time comes." Su Dudao asked, "Aren't cultivators below the sage's cannon fodder?" Pan Xian glanced at him and said, "You only gain when you lose. Once you succeed, not only can you restrain fate, but you can also strengthen the heavenly Tao." Emperor Shao said, "This is indeed a great contribution. Fellow Taoist Han only said that we can't rashly start a conflict, and didn't say that he wanted to give up against life." Su Dudao frowned, and did not refute in the end. Sages schemed and all living beings were pawns. As long as the heavenly Tao was good, the sacrifice in front of him was nothing. Pan Xian continued to explain some details. The 4 sages listened carefully. On the other side, in the Universal Hall, Heavenly Venerate Xiandu, Sect Master Tianju, South Extreme Heavenly Venerate, Qiu Shilai, Fong Liang, and Heavenly Venerate Wufa were also discussing something. An alliance between 100 worlds is not a small matter. Unlike the previous banquet, we're going all out this time. At that time, the Divine Robe Taoist will also be here. I wonder if he will target the Heavenly Tao. Heavenly Venerate Xiandu said in a low voice. Ever since the deity realm of the ruins of End was destroyed, and the great Tao Divine Spirit perished, the chaos had already become chaotic. More and more mighty figures came out to create a world. Those hidden worlds also surfaced. Not only did the Heavenly Tao welcome a golden age, but the chaos was also the same. Heavenly Venerate Wufa said, the Divine Robe Taoist shouldn't be targeting the Heavenly Tao. He might even support it. Sect Master Tianju, Fong Liang, and Qiu Shilai nodded. The South Extreme Heavenly Venerate stared at the four of them, his eyelids twitching. Heavenly Venerate Xiandu seemed to have thought of something. His gaze changed slightly as he said, in that case, the 5 of us will go. The other sages will guard the Heavenly Tao. The South Extreme Heavenly Venerate asked, aren't we going to discuss this with the other sages? Heavenly Venerate Xiandu said, there's no need. The Heavenly Tao is becoming stronger. If we need to discuss everything, it will become a bad habit sooner or later. It's best if every sage can take charge. The South Extreme Heavenly Venerate looked at him deeply and cursed silently. The old fox was finally going to tear off his hypocritical mask and start fighting for power. In the past hundreds of thousands of years, Heavenly Venerate Xiandu had no desires and gradually gained power. Now, if he wanted to fight for something, the other sages could not reject him. This matter is settled. All of you can choose a batch of geniuses. The stronger their potential, the better. It's just nice to show the Heavenly Tao's power to the other worlds. Heavenly Venerate Xiandu instructed with an unquestionable tone. Heavenly Venerate Xiandu was filled with confidence after obtaining Heavenly Venerate Wufa's confirmation. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.